Chapter 450. Suddenly, a chill surged in Wei Jun's heart, making his hair stand on end. He suddenly raised his head and instantly saw that Lin Sun's eyes were looking at him from far away in the void. Those eyes were deep, cold, and like a surging abyss, they seemed to be able to swallow everything. In Lin's hand, there was a ferocious bow made of white bones and skeletons. The bowstring seemed to be soaked in blood, bright red and breathtaking. Shit! Wei Jun's face suddenly changed. Almost instinctively, he let out a loud roar and withdrew a bright silver beast bone. A pure and holy radiance rose from it and enveloped his entire body. Buzz! The void suddenly gave out a strange roar. In an instant, the silver divine light burst out and wrapped Wei Jun's figure and disappeared. Puff! At the same time, an invisible spiritual arrow swept through the air and fell on the place where Wei Jun had been, digging a bottomless hole in the ground. It was only a millimeter away from killing Wei Jun, but Wei Jun was vigilant in advance and broke through the void with a secret treasure of animal bone. The woman in purple dress who had been standing next to Wei Jun reacted at this time. When she saw Wei Jun disappear and the shocking hole in the ground, her face instantly turned pale and soaked in cold sweat. If the arrow had been shot at her just now, the woman in purple dress didn't dare to think about it anymore. He's coming. Could it be that he dares to start a massacre? Run! In the distance there was an uproar of horror. All the strong practitioners who had been watching the battle were flustered and fled in all directions. All this was just because Lin Sun was rushing here from the void. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, the woman in purple dress also turned around and fled. That young man was so terrible that even Taoist Xiong, a great practitioner of Tao Insight Realm, couldn't do anything to him. Now if he continued to commit murder, who could resist him? Bang! However, soon after the woman in purple dress fled, a terrible force came from behind and pressed her to the ground, making her scream in horror. What is this place? An indifferent and cold voice sounded like a demon's interrogation, which made the woman in purple dress tremble all over. She answered almost subconsciously, "Don't kill me. I'll tell you everything you want to know." "All right." With the voice, Lin Sun appeared. His clothes were ragged and stained with blood. The sword wounds on his body had not healed yet, which made him look extremely terrible. The woman in purple dress was stunned. She didn't expect that Lin Sun would agree so readily, which surprised her. However, she didn't have the time to think at all. In the next moment, her entire body was lifted up and flashed towards the boundless night sky in the distance. Just like that, the curtain fell on the great battle that had been caused by the worldly anomaly. The night returned to normal, but the effects of the great battle had not ended. Have you ever heard of a youth like this in the ancient spirit world? He's only in his teens, but he's already able to fight against someone at the heavenly passage realm without being defeated? Why is it that such a heaven-defying youth was unknown before? Never heard of it. Under the night sky, the thoughts of the Tao Insight Realm experts were communicating with each other. They had been hiding in the dark and witnessed the earth-shattering battle between Lin Sun and Taoist Xiong, and all of them were shocked by the tyrannical strength Lin Sun displayed. In their opinion, such a monstrous youth should have long been famous throughout the world and shocked the world. So they couldn't help but speculate that this youth most likely came from a mysterious secluded immortal sect or an ancient forbidden area that was isolated from the world. Otherwise, why hadn't they heard of him before? Perhaps he's not from the ancient spirit world at all, but from another world. Someone made a bold inference. In the past years in the ancient spirit world, it wasn't that similar things hadn't happened. There had been many peerless geniuses who crossed the realms and fought in all directions just to find a perfect way to break through. There were even invincible saints with unfathomable cultivation who fought in the world in search of opportunities. Would a monstrous genius like him also come for the sake of entering the precious blood plateau? Someone asked. The precious blood plateau. Suddenly, all the thoughts fell silent. The Luoho Mountain had stood for countless years, and it was a well-known place of opportunity in the ancient spirit world. Among them, the precious Blood Plateau was the most famous. Every once in a while, from 3 to 5 years to several decades, the passage to the treasured Blood Plateau would open. If one was able to seize the opportunity to enter it, then it was very likely that one would obtain numerous unexpected ancient treasures. All of them were treasures that had been left behind from ancient times, and the spiritual weapons that were refined today couldn't compare to them at all. It was even to the extent that some ancient treasures even contained mysterious Taoist scriptures and inheritances. This had been confirmed many times in the ancient spirit world. In the past, there were real examples of cultivators entering the precious Blood Plateau and obtaining ancient treasures by chance, and then soaring on the path to the Tao. The treasured Bloodfall Plains isn't a place that just anyone can enter. According to my knowledge, the top figures of numerous ancient sects in the ancient spirit world have already converged here. It isn't so easy for this mysterious young man to obtain a share of the spoils. Indeed, although he possesses the strength to fight against a Tao Insight Realm expert, he's all alone in the end. If he dares to compete with the inheritors of those ancient orthodoxies, then he's bound to suffer a calamity. You can't say that. That youth is all alone indeed, but don't forget that the more he suffers in battle, the more valiant he becomes, and his strength will only grow stronger and stronger. Whoever dares to underestimate him will definitely suffer a great loss. The sounds of discussion and disputes arose without end. Even though they were unable to argue for a reason, it obviously showed that the combat strength Lin Sun possessed after the battle with Daoist Xiong had already drawn the vigilance of numerous great cultivators. 10 days later, within a dangerous mountain that was covered in mist, the ground quaked as an enormous creature charged out. It was over 30 m long and shaped like a centipede, yet it had the head of a WYRM, and its entire body was covered in ghastly scales, causing it to seem ferocious and terrifying. But at this moment it was fleeing for its life. Everywhere it passed, trees collapsed and rocks shattered, causing the surroundings to be in a mess, and it seemed to be extremely shocking. Bang! Abruptly, a figure whistled through the air. His fist was like a python emitting a resplendent light. With a loud bang, the terrifying centipede-like beast's head was smashed into pieces, and scarlet blood spurted out. After that, its enormous body crashed to the ground and was unable to get up again. That figure flashed into appearance, and it was precisely Lin Sun. He had an indifferent expression as he drew his saber and split open the corpse of the demon beast, and then he withdrew a glistening green demon core. Nearby, the woman in a violet dress had a dazed expression as she watched all of this. During these past 10 days, she'd been constantly on tenterhooks, and she was deeply afraid of infuriating Lin Sun and causing a calamity to befall her. But to her surprise, all along the way, besides fighting, Lin Sun only fought and killed countless ferocious and terrifying demon beasts. He seemed as if he was a battle madman, and there was nothing else in his eyes besides battle. This caused Lin Sun to actually pay no attention to her even once during these past 10 days. Swoosh! Lin Sun's return instantly jolted the woman awake from her deep contemplation, and she consciously followed by Lin Sun's side and continued forward with him. However, they hadn't been flying for long when the woman's beautiful face turned ghastly pale, while a wisp of uncontrollable weakness and exhaustion appeared between her brows, and her figure was on the verge of collapse. During these 10 days, Lin Sun hadn't rested at all. Besides moving forward, he was fighting, and he seemed as if he didn't know what exhaustion was at all. This caused the woman in a violet dress to suffer. For the sake of keeping up with Lin Sun's footsteps, she hadn't rested at all, and she could only grit her teeth and persist. Up until now, her physical strength was on the verge of exhaustion, and she was about to be unable to hold on. This damned pervert, is his body really made of iron, and he never knows exhaustion? The woman in a violet dress cried bitterly in her heart, and she used all the harsh words to curse Lin Sun. Suddenly, the consciousness of the woman in a violet dress became blurred, and her aura became unstable. Her body shook, and she fell straight to the ground. Oh no! The woman in a violet dress was shocked. She knew that she was already an arrow at the end of its flight, and she couldn't hold on any longer. If she fell from the void, she would definitely turn into a pool of blood. Suddenly, a surging force surged over and supported her figure, and she landed steadily on the ground. "I'll give you 2 hours to rest." Lin Sun's indifferent voice came into her ears. This was no less than a pleasant surprise, and it caused the woman in a violet dress who was on the verge of collapse to be unable to believe her ears. When did this ferocious young man who was like a devil become soft-hearted? Immediately, the woman in a violet dress took a deep breath. She couldn't care so much anymore, and she opened her mouth to swallow some elixirs before starting to meditate in silence. There were only 2 hours left. She had to hurry up. This was a low mountain top. Looking from here, the mountains in the distance were boundless, rising and falling, and the rolling mist was everywhere. From time to time, the roars of demonic beasts could be heard, rumbling and surging. Lin Sun stood in silence, and his black eyes as deep as the abyss glanced around, but his heart was secretly anxious. 10 days ago, the duel with Taoist Bear had stimulated his potential, and he had condensed half of the spiritual veins on the 4 acupoints of the heart vessel. He only needed a little more to completely condense the spiritual veins. But Taoist Bear's retreat without a fight had stopped all this progress. In these 10 days, Lin Sun had been fighting all the way, eager to meet an evenly matched opponent, so that he could condense the spiritual veins again. But until now, although he had killed no less than a dozen powerful demonic beasts, Lin Sun's wish had not been fulfilled. The most terrible thing was that the new spiritual veins couldn't be condensed, and it was difficult for him to control the violent power in his body. If this went on, his physical condition would only get worse and worse. Just like now, although the sword wounds all over his body had stopped bleeding, they hadn't recovered until now, because they were affected by the terrible condition in his body. He had to fight. Lin Sun took a deep breath. He knew that the problem of his body couldn't be solved by treasures of heaven and earth. He had to fight by himself, and only by tempering himself in battle could he completely sublimate and transform. There was no better way. Time went by, and before he knew it, 2 hours had passed. Obviously, the woman in a violet dress was also calculating the time. As soon as the time was up, she woke up from meditation. Although her physical strength hadn't fully recovered, it was much better than before. Seeing this, Lin Sun was about to continue moving forward. But at this moment, in the distant sky, a thick bloody light suddenly appeared, which looked extremely terrifying. Chapter 451. The bloody light was so thick that it dyed the sky red. The vision was so magnificent that Lin Sun couldn't help palpitating. The ancient blood shines in the sky. This is a sign that the passage to the precious blood plane is about to open. The woman in the purple dress was surprised, and her eyes were full of surprise. The precious blood plane? Lin Sun asked. This was the first time that Lin Sun had spoken in 10 days. The woman in the purple dress was stunned, and then she quickly explained. There will be many ancient treasures in it. Lin Sun couldn't help but be moved. The treasures left from ancient times could not be destroyed under the erosion of time. It could be imagined how powerful they were. Yes, it's said that the precious blood plane is one of the most important forbidden areas in the Luoho mountain. Every time it opens, it will attract many top talents to seek opportunities. The woman in the purple dress seemed to be very cooperative to save her life. The most peculiar thing is that the passage is densely covered with mysterious ancient prohibitions. Only spirit realm practitioners can enter it safely. Once their strength is too high, they will be backfired. But at the same time, if they are too weak, they can't survive in the precious blood plane at all. Although there are opportunities there, They are also accompanied by terrible dangers and killing intent. Speaking of this, the woman in the purple dress reminded seriously, therefore, those who go to the precious blood plane to seek opportunities are all the top sea spirit realm practitioners in the world. Lin Sun's eyes suddenly lit up. What he wanted most now was to fight. It couldn't be better if he could meet some strong opponents. Immediately, Lin Sun decided to make a trip to the plains of treasured blood. Not only was he looking for opportunities, but more importantly, he wanted to take this opportunity to condense a new spiritual vein. The woman in the purple dress didn't expect that her reminder not only failed to make Lin Sun retreat, but also made him decide to go there to find out. She couldn't help feeling nervous and said, "Those who can go to the precious blood plane are not simple. They all come from the ancient orthodoxies of the ancient spirit world. Those who are not strong enough will only be killed." Lin Sun glanced at her. "Are you afraid?" The purple-dressed woman's expression changed slightly, and she said bitterly, "I am indeed afraid. That place is not a place someone like me dares to set foot in." When she spoke up to hear, she seemed to want to prove that she wasn't a coward, and she said with a serious expression, "It's not just that. The successors of those ancient sects are accompanied by servants at the heavenly abode realm. Under such circumstances, no one else has the qualifications to go against them at all." Lin Sun frowned. "Isn't it said that only sea spirit realm practitioners can enter it safely?" The purple-robed woman nodded, however, for those ancient orthodoxies, they have mastered a secret method that allows those Tao Insight Realm powerhouses to suppress their cultivation level and sneak in with the aura of Sea Spirit Realm. "I see." Lin Sun muttered to himself. Then he squinted at the woman in purple beside him and said, "Answer a few questions for me, and I'll let you go now." The woman in a violet dress was shocked in her heart. She'd never imagined that this young man who was ferocious like a devil would actually be soft-hearted. She even doubted whether Lin was testing her. But in next to no time, she knew she was thinking too much. After Lin Sun asked a few questions, he turned around and soared into the sky, and from the beginning until the end, he'd never aroused any killing intent. The woman in a violet dress stood there in a daze. She was surprised, fortunate, and perplexed. "He let me go just like that?" The woman in a violet dress recalled what she'd encountered in the past 10 days, and she felt as if she'd had a dream. The most unbelievable thing to her was that the questions Lin Sun asked earlier were simply too simple. For example, the layout of the forces in the ancient spirit world, the origin of Luoho Mountain. These questions weren't secrets at all. Could it be that he's from another domain and doesn't belong to the ancient spirit world? Suddenly, the woman in a violet dress realized a problem, and her heart shook fiercely. She recalled that Lin Sun had asked some questions about the ancient desolation domain, and the ancient spirit world itself was a domain within the ancient desolation domain. Swoosh! In the sky, Lin Sun's figure flickered as he moved through the clouds and mist. Ren Miao Miao, named after the woman in a violet dress, came from the flame-refining Taoism sect in the ancient spirit world, and was a disciple of the same sect as Wei Jun. From her, Lin Sun got an extremely valuable clue that the ancient spirit world he'd come to this time turned out to be a world within the ancient desolation domain. It was incredible that the fourth pass of the heaven-accessing place, conquering place, had sent him to the ancient spirit world. Was the existence of the heaven-accessing place also related to the ancient desolation domain? From this point of view, since the ancient spirit world belonged to the ancient desolation domain, was the place where Xiao Empire was located also a subsidiary of the ancient desolation domain? Questions came to Lin Sun's mind one after another. No matter what the answer was, Lin Sun's vision was suddenly broadened as if he'd seen a new world. He was no longer confined to the Xiao Empire as before. This was the insight of a frog in a well who didn't know how big the world was. Fortunately, Lin Sun entered the ancient spirit world by chance, which made him different from when he was in the Xiao Empire. His vision and insight had gone beyond the scope of the Xiao Empire. He finally understood why Bai Lingshi was so determined to leave for the ancient Desolation domain at the 300th birthday party of the Empress. Everything was for the sake of cultivation and to see a bigger world in cultivation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, Lin Sun woke up from his thoughts. He noticed that in the far distance, there were many escape lights flying in the same direction. They were gorgeous and dazzling. It was a group of practitioners, both men and women, all of whom were very young and powerful. They were accompanied by guards and servants. "Oh look, that guy's clothes are ragged and he's wounded all over. He looks so pitiful, as if he's just been ravaged by a demon beast. Is he also going to the precious blood step?" A man in a golden robe chuckled and found Lin Sun's trace. "Ha ha ha, there are so many guys like him who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. All of them think that there are countless opportunities in the Luoho mountain and try to get them and soar to the sky. It's a pity that they never think that guys with weak strength like them will die if they come here, let alone get any opportunities." Another young man in blue looked up to the sky and laughed. "Senior Brother One is right. You have to be alive to fight for the so-called opportunities." Some other men and women echoed him. That Senior Brother One was even more pleased with himself. He waved his hand and said, "Everyone, let us hurry on with our journey. I've heard that apart from our Eastern Pole Sword sect, quite a few formidable opponents have come from other orthodoxies as well. We must all be prepared." As they talked, they whistled past in the void. From beginning to end, they regarded Lin Sun as nothing and made rude comments, which seemed extremely arrogant. "Don't let me see you in the precious blood step," Lin Sun sneered in his heart. Now he only wanted to fight and was worried that he couldn't find an opponent. He couldn't wait for some ignorant guys to jump out and practice his skills. When they set out again, the blood color emerging in the sky was getting thicker and thicker, which was demonic and frightening. On the way, they met more and more masters, which made it more and more lively. When they were close to the place where the blood light was born, they saw bright escape lights whistling through the sky, crisscrossing and flying over there. Talents began to appear in group. When they arrived here, Lin Sun didn't need to find the way at all. It was enough to follow those escape lights. Finally, they came to a barren land. There was no vegetation here, and it was like a barren plain with no vitality. However, the atmosphere here was extremely terrible. The earth was red as if it had been soaked in thick blood, emitting a frightening evil spirit. The bloody light that had appeared in the sky had actually come from here. Many streaks of light whistled through the air as they arrived here, and they all became extremely cautious. In the middle of the barren bloody plain, there was a bloody stone pillar standing thousands of meters high. It had long been broken, and its surface was marked with mottled traces of time. At this time, there was a rolling blood light emerging from the stone pillar, covering the heaven and earth there, like a bloody purgatory. The scene was extremely terrible. After arriving here, many practitioners stood far away and didn't dare to approach the bloody stone pillar, as if they were afraid of being stained by the blood light. Everyone's face was full of vigilance, expectation, and tension. They were all waiting, because they knew that it wouldn't be long before a passage would be opened from the blood light spreading from the stone pillar. That passage was the only way to the precious blood step. There were too many practitioners waiting here, and from time to time, there were escape lights coming, which almost filled the area. When Lin Sun arrived, he couldn't help but squint his eyes. There were many descendants of ancient orthodoxies, disciples of major sects, and many demonic cultivators and older generation powerhouses who had entered sea spirit realm for many years. Of course, the most eye-catching ones were the descendants of ancient orthodoxies who appeared in groups. All of them were handsome men and beautiful women with outstanding momentum. At a glance, people could tell that they must be outstanding talents. Around them, there were groups of servants and waiters. The mighty force was not comparable to that of ordinary sect disciples at all. As soon as Lin Sun arrived, he was also pointed at by many people. Others were dressed in bright armors and were in groups, but Lin Sun's clothes were tattered and stained with blood. He was alone and covered with sword wounds, which made him look extremely special. This kid looks really wretched. I wonder which corner of the world this loose cultivator popped out from. It seems that he has just experienced a fierce battle. Now he is injured, but he still doesn't give up and comes to seek opportunities. He is really bold. No matter where Lin Sun went, he would encounter such comments, which made him frown. He walked alone, away from the crowd, and stopped near the blood light of the stone pillar. But soon, no one paid attention to Lin Sun anymore, because they were all attracted by an exclamation. "Look, the descendants of Heavenly Mountain are also here." Along with the exclamation, in the void in the distance, flowers fell from the sky, fragrance filled the air, and a dreamy divine rainbow emerged. Chapter 452. The Heavenly Cloud Mountain was an ancient orthodoxy in the ancient spirit world, and its successors were all extraordinary geniuses that were renowned throughout the world. The cultivators present revealed expressions of fear and reverence when they saw the group of men and women arrive on divine rainbows that were suffused with a divine aura. Even some of the successors of the ancient sects that had arrived earlier revealed expressions of vigilance. Obviously, Ling Xinyuo. She actually came as well. The person in the lead of the group of successors of the Heavenly Cloud Mountain was a young girl in a blue dress. Her black hair was like a waterfall, her skin was translucent, her starry eyes were intelligent, her red lips were pearly white, and her appearance was extremely outstanding. She was so beautiful that she seemed as if she had walked out of a painting. Her figure was graceful, and her entire body was suffused with a divine aura. There was no lack of handsome men and beautiful women by her side, but when compared to her, all of them instantly became dim. Many cultivators present recognized the identity of this woman and exclaimed in surprise. Ling Xinyuo, a peerless figure who possessed the innate talent of Thunder Soul Jade Body. Although she was only 17 years old, her name had already shaken the world a few years ago. She was the most famous genius disciple of Yun Yao's younger generation. After their group arrived, the atmosphere became slightly silent, and it seemed as if no one dared to speak loudly for fear of disturbing them. On the other hand, some disciples of the ancient sects felt that their status was equivalent to Ling Xinyuo, and their gazes towards Ling Xinyuo were much bolder, and their fervent gazes carried admiration and adoration. The earth shook like a clap of thunder, and it suddenly resounded from extremely far away. A tall and robust figure walked over with large strides. His bones were thick, and his upper body was naked. His muscles seemed as if they were made of bronze, and they were filled with explosive strength. On his shoulder, he carried a black and thick iron rod. Every step he took was like a moving mountain, and it caused the earth to tremble and dust to fill the air. He was ferocious and oppressive. Everyone instantly exclaimed in surprise as they recognized that the person who had arrived was the successor of the Star Solitude Taoist sect, Tai Qianhan. This was another genius that had shaken the world since a long time ago. He possessed the innate attribute of the mountain and river suppression innate attribute, and his entire body was filled with peerless vitality and boundless strength. Swoosh! Not long after Tai Qianhan arrived, a green divine ray suddenly descended from a nearby mountain, and it transformed into a youth wearing a black Taoist robe and carrying an ancient sword with pine patterns on it on his back. As the young man's eyes spun about, bright and golden mysterious markings surged into appearance. His entire body seethed with the aura of treasures, causing him to seem dreamlike and illusory, and it was obvious that he possessed peerless talent with a single glance. Bang! However, when the young man's feet had just landed on the ground, a strand of black divine light whistled over, and it transformed into the image of an ape. It roared towards the sky, and its voice was like a tsunami that shook the soul. The young man in the Taoist robe seemed to have foreseen the future. His figure flashed, and the mountain beneath his feet was crushed by the ape phantom. Roar! The ape phantom roared and charged towards the young man in Taoist robes once more. With a stomp of its foot, the ground instantly cracked apart, and it seemed incomparably ferocious. The nearby cultivators had no choice but to dodge, and their expressions changed indeterminately as they'd already recognized the identity of the youth in Taoist robes and the ape image. The former was the successor of the Spirit Essence Sword sect, whose Taoist name was Yun Ku. The latter was the successor of the Blood God sect, Yuan Zhan, a demonic cultivator. Yuan Zhan, the steppes of treasured blood is about to open. Do you really want to continue fighting? Yun Ku's figure flashed as he avoided Yuan Zhan's attack, and golden mysterious markings shot out explosively from his eyes, causing him to seem extremely terrifying. Humph! The ape image grunted coldly while its entire body seethed with baleful qi, and then it suddenly transformed into a black-robed man with dark skin and crimson-red eyes. All right, it wouldn't be too late to slaughter you after we enter the steppes of treasured blood. Yuan Zhan swept the surroundings with his gaze before he immediately restrained his aura and stopped fighting. Ha ha! Yun Ku smiled and didn't speak any further. Both of them were clearly aware that there were too many cultivators present here, and there was no lack of formidable competitors. If they continued fighting, then it would only be a joke for them. Huff! Right at this moment, a gentle breeze blew over, and then a multicolored flower floated up into appearance. Its stem and leaves were multicolored and gorgeous, and it seemed as if it was formed from dense and mysterious spirit markings. Swish! With a light shake, it transformed into a woman in multicolored clothes. Her beautiful hair fluttered while her beautiful eyes flickered with emotion, and her figure was slender and graceful. Her sexy and charming bearing seemed to be extremely arousing. Lotus butterfly dress. Everyone was horrified while their countenances turned pale. They'd recognized the woman in multicolored clothes as the inheritor of the myriad transformation spirit soil. Her true form was a 5-colored lotus, and she was an inborn spirit that possessed unfathomable strength. According to the ancient records, once a 5-colored lotus gained intelligence, it would possess the profundities of the 5 elements, and its natural talent was so terrifying that it was beyond imagination. During the ancient times, a 5-colored lotus had once attained the Tao, and it possessed the profundities of nature. It had slaughtered fiend gods and fought sages, and it relied on the secrets of the 5 elements it grasped to become extraordinarily renowned. Most terrifying of it all was that the 5-colored lotus had a bloodthirsty nature, and a single breath was capable of seizing the soul and absorbing the blood essence of its opponents. It was extremely terrifying. When the lotus butterfly dress appeared, many cultivators in the surroundings acted as if they were avoiding a scorpion, and they moved aside to form an area. No one dared approach it. Even the blood god sect's Yuan Zhan couldn't help but frown while revealing a trace of fear. Bang! 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 It wasn't long before the sound of war drums resounded in the sky, and then a bronze war chariot whistled through the sky as it arrived. A man in golden armor stood atop the chariot. He held a spear in his hand, and his expression was murderous like a god of war. The disciple of the demon suppression clan, Bai Yu. Gosh, the little god of slaughter is here. The people in the surroundings were in an uproar. As soon as Bai Yu appeared, he glanced at the crowd with indifferent eyes, with a superior look, but no one dared to criticize him. As time went by, there were more and more strong cultivators in this barren area. There were descendants of ancient sects, spiritual bodies born between heaven and earth, and powerful demonic cultivators. All of them had horrible aura, and they belonged to the top talents in the world. Under such circumstances, even the most conceited and arrogant geniuses became cautious and dared not to be careless, for fear of causing disputes and causing serious consequences. Lin Sun stood there alone and never looked back from beginning to end. He didn't ignore everything, but was attracted by the stone pillar in the distance. The stone pillar was thousands of meters high, as if it had stood for thousands of years. Although it was mottled, it had a mysterious power. It was that mysterious power that caused the bloody light all over the sky, which looked extremely terrifying. As soon as Lin Sun saw it from a distance, he was affected and became irritable. The raging power in his body showed signs of continuing to erupt. This surprised him so much that he had to concentrate all his spirit to suppress himself. Under such circumstances, he had no mind to pay attention to other things. "Boy, get out of the way. This place is occupied by our Eastern Pole Sword sect." Suddenly, a rebuke sounded in his ears. Lin Sun turned his head and saw a group of men and women coming. The one who rebuked him was a middle-aged attendant with a look of disdain. "Hey, isn't this the boy we saw just now? He really has the guts to come. Ha! He really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I dare say that if he enters the precious blood step, he is doomed to die." Some of the men and women seemed to recognize Lin Sun in surprise. At this time, Lin Sun also recognized that these men and women were the guys who had pointed at him on the way before. "What are you waiting for? Get out of here." The middle-aged attendant looked impatient. Many people looked at Lin Sun coldly as if they were watching the fun. Eastern Pole Sword sect was also an ancient orthodoxy with deep root. However, Lin Sun's clothes were tattered and stained with blood, and his body was covered with sword wounds. He looked very unbearable, and he was alone. Obviously, he was not a man of great background. Under such circumstances, it was no wonder that Eastern Pole Sword sect appeared to be so strong. Lin Sun thought silently for a while, and finally took a deep breath to suppress the restlessness in his heart. Then, he turned around and left silently. He didn't want to get into trouble at this time. There were too many practitioners present. Once a fight broke out, it was easy to miss the opportunity to enter the precious blood step. Seeing Lin Sun retreating like a bully, many people who wanted to watch the fun couldn't help but feel disappointed. They laughed and looked down on Lin Sun very much. The men and women of Eastern Pole Sword sect also chuckled. They were very satisfied with Lin Sun's adaptability. "At first glance, I can tell that he is a good-for-nothing. How dare he come here? He must be tired of living. Fortunately, he is a little clever and knows what he can't provoke," the middle-aged attendant said proudly. "Good-for-nothing?" Lin Sun stopped at once and turned his head to look at him. There was an indescribable irritation surging in his abyss-like black eyes. "What are you looking at? What, you still don't accept it? Good-for-nothing is what I call you. What can you do to me? Get out of here." The middle-aged attendant's face darkened. He regarded Lin Sun's move as a provocation, so he attacked him without hesitation. Crack! He raised his hand and slapped Lin Sun in the face. Without saying a word, Lin Sun also slapped him with his palm. Light cyan divine light swept out like waves and collided with the attendant's palm with a bang. When everyone thought that Lin Sun would be defeated, the middle-aged attendant let out a scream. His body seemed to be crushed by a mountain. His tendons and bones were broken, and his 7 orifices were bleeding. He fell down hard. He collapsed on the ground, howling, and couldn't get up again. There was a sound of surprise in the field. With just one palm, Lin Sun killed a attendant at the late stage of Sea Spirit Realm. "If you provoke me again, I'll kill you without mercy." Lin Sun's eyes were indifferent. He glanced at the descendants of Eastern Pole Sword sect, and there was an uncontrollable killing intent in his voice. Then, he turned around and left. Many experts gasped. They were unable to imagine that not only was this young man in rags who was all alone not weak, he actually seemed to be formidable to the extreme as soon as he attacked. That was the descendant of Eastern Pole Sword sect, surrounded by a large number of attendants. Lin Sun was alone. How dare he give a warning? Was he really not afraid of death? At this moment, even the descendants of Eastern Pole Sword sect were stunned. They couldn't believe their eyes. They were actually warned by a young man? "Don't be so arrogant. Suddenly, a young man rushed out. His palms and fingers were filled with black light, which turned into a sky full of evil spirit and shrouded Lin Sun. The young overmatch of Eastern Pole Sword Sect attacked, which caused a sensation. Many practitioners looked over. Lin Sun stopped again. No one knew that at this moment, his inner agitation was on the verge of being uncontrollable. Boom! The black light was overwhelming, suppressing Lin Sun's skull. He wanted to kill Lin Sun in the most powerful manner. Lin Sun didn't move. He only stretched out one hand and easily obliterated the black light. Then, he punched out. Chapter 453. The roar of the fist was deafening, shaking heaven and earth. The power contained the three forces of mountain shattering, sea shattering, and soul shattering. It was so terrible that many practitioners nearby changed their faces slightly. Plop! Without any suspense, the young man from Eastern Pole Sword Sect was directly suppressed by the palm. His body fell to the ground like a toad, with blood spurting from his mouth and nose. Hiss! Many people gasped. Another powerful successor of the younger generation of Eastern Pole Sword Sect was suppressed by another move. The way they looked at Lin Sun changed. When Lin Sun arrived, many people were pointing at him and making comments with disdain. They thought that he was insignificant and that coming here was no different from courting death. However, witnessing this scene, they couldn't help but feel scared, and a chill ran down their spines. They realized that this ragged, blood-soaked young man was a hidden and fierce character. Lin Sun stepped forward with killing intent in his black eyes. It seemed that he was going to kill the young man completely. "Don't be so arrogant, young man." Suddenly, an old man in a purple robe rushed out from the side of Eastern Pole Sword Sect. A silver light suddenly shot out from between his eyebrows towards Lin Sun. Lin Sun waved his fist to resist it. With a boom, the void exploded, and the divine light swept wildly. The power shocked many people. A strong practitioner of Tao Insight Realm attacked. The old man in a purple robe stepped forward with a cold look. He grabbed with his palm, and the silver divine light emerged and moved across the void. However, Lin Sun didn't dodge, but took the initiative to meet it. The light cyan divine light in his palm was blazing like a surging sea, colliding with the silver divine light. Suddenly, a dazzling rain of light burst out in the void, and the earth was shaken and cracked, making a cracking sound. Humph! The old man in a purple robe's face darkened. He couldn't help but be angry, and wanted to kill Lin Sun after being blocked by Lin Sun twice in a row. Boom! With silver light all over his body, he rose into the air and spread his arms like a rock. His momentum was extremely terrifying. Everyone was shocked. The momentum of the old man in a purple robe was too strong. It broke out like a mountain torrent, displaying the power of Tao Insight Realm so vividly that no one dared to look at him directly. Chu Lintian, a famous master of Eastern Pole Sword Sect for a long time. I didn't expect that he would come with those disciples. It seems that the competition to enter the Precious Blood Plateau will be very cruel. Many people were surprised and doubtful. Chu Lintian moved out, bringing with him a strong gale that sent sand and stones flying, and silver light surged. To everyone's surprise, Lin Sun didn't retreat in the face of Tao Insight Realm. Conversely, his black eyes surged like an abyss while a light green divine radiance was emanated from his body, and his imposing aura actually became peerlessly formidable. Immediately, the two clashed fiercely. One old and one young, a Sea of Soul Realm youngster, and the other a Heavenly Passage Realm old man. Both of them used their techniques, moving unhindered between heaven and earth. Divine radiance rumbled like tempestuous waves, and it crushed space into powder, causing this area to fall into upheaval while the heavens and the earth dimmed. There were many cultivators present, and many of them were outstanding geniuses. There were even strong cultivators in the Tao Insight Realm hiding in the dark as followers. What surprised everyone was Lin Sun. No one had expected that a young man at the late stage of Sea Spirit Realm could confront a Tao Insight Realm and not be suppressed immediately. This was too terrifying. In the surroundings, besides a small group of the most dazzling figures that were capable of accomplishing this, all the other people of the same generation seemed to have dimmed in comparison. Who was this young man? Why was he so fierce? Boom! The battle was fierce, and the rolling explosions sounded one after another, shaking the sky and the earth. Everyone had seen that although Lin Sun was beaten back again and again, he rushed forward every time as if he would not be injured at all. The most terrible thing was that his momentum and strength were also rising in the battle. I remember, he is the young man who fought with Taoist Xiong. It turns out to be him. I heard that Qian Huai, a Tao Insight Realm Master of Wei Jun, was killed by this young man. Is the rumor true? There was a burst of exclamation in the field. Obviously, they had heard some rumors about Lin Sun. All of a sudden, all this spread. Many practitioners in the field didn't know Lin Sun, but when they learned that he had killed Qian Huai and forced Taoist Xiong to retreat, there was an uproar. It was really shocking. Who would have dared to imagine that the youth in ragged clothes and in a rather sorry state had actually done such a shocking thing in the past? He killed a Tao Insight Realm Master and forced Taoist Xiong to leave angrily. This was incredible. Even Ling Xinyuo of Cloudy Jade Mountain, Tai Qianhan of Star Solitude Taoism, Yun Ku of Spirit Sword Sect, Yuan Zhan of Blood God Sect, Ye of All Transformations Spiritual Earth, and other peerless figures were attracted by Lin Sun at this time and began to take him seriously. Being able to kill a Tao Insight Realm Master at the Sea Spirit Realm, he could be regarded as an amazing figure in the world. The men and women of Eastern Pole Sword Sect all changed their expressions. On the way here, they pointed at Lin Sun with disdain. But who would have thought that the young man they looked down upon would suppress their attendants, defeat their fellow disciples, and fight fiercely with the Tao Insight Realm Master of their sect without being defeated? This caught them off guard and made them even more shocked and angry. The discussion in the field was also heard by Chu Lintian, who was fighting fiercely with Lin Sun. Originally, he was quite surprised and almost thought that Lin Sun was also a Tao Insight Realm Master who had suppressed his cultivation to the level of Sea Spirit Realm. But now he finally understood that the young man in front of him was actually a rare genius. He had even killed a Tao Insight Realm Master with his own hands. This made Chu Lintian's hair stand on end. Even Taoist Xiong retreated without success. Chu Lintian boasted that he was extraordinary, but he didn't dare to say that he could defeat Taoist Xiong. Such a comparison showed how ferocious this young man was. If this battle was disadvantageous, and they were unable to suppress him, their Eastern Pole Sword Sect would be utterly humiliated in front of everyone's eyes. At this moment, Lin Sun's momentum was shocking, which attracted the attention of all the people present. No one dared to underestimate him anymore. Chu Lintian, on the other hand, was in a dilemma. Moreover, under the watchful eyes of all the people, he, a Tao Insight Realm Master, couldn't defeat Lin Sun, which was undoubtedly too shameful. The most terrible thing was that the Eastern Pole Sword Sect didn't dare to help Lin Sun again. It was not that they didn't want to, but once they sent someone to deal with Lin Sun, it would be even more shameful. Within a few days, the news would spread throughout the ancient spirit world, and they would become a laughingstock. But in next to no time, an unexpected event occurred. A bloody glow converged in the sky and emanated a terrifying fluctuation. After that, the space above the ancient stone pillar in the distance suddenly exploded into pieces, and it transformed into a passageway that seemed like a blood-colored vortex that was suffused with surging and terrifying forbidden energy. The passage to the precious bloodstain was opened at this moment. All the people in the field were attracted by it and no longer paid attention to the battle between Lin Sun and Chu Lintian. "Let's go! Hurry up! Hurry up! The opportunity is fleeting!" Shouts and shouts rang out one after another. Streaks of light tore through the sky like a tide and flashed towards the passageway of the blood-colored vortex. Boy, I'll let you go this time. When you enter the precious blood stain, you will die. Chu Lintian was also secretly anxious and no longer wanted to fight with Lin Sun. He hurriedly left a cruel sentence and rushed towards the bloody passage in the distance. There were many opportunities to kill Lin Sun, but there was only one chance to enter the precious bloodstain. He naturally knew which was more important. Seeing this, Lin Sun was quite unwilling. But soon, he was keenly aware that Chu Lintian's breath was weakening. Obviously, Chu Lintian was suppressing his cultivation in an attempt to avoid the taboo power in the bloody passage and enter the precious bloodstain. Seeing this, Lin Sun did not hesitate to take out the insignificant bow and pull the bowstring. Bang! An illusory spirit arrow tore through the air and shot towards Chu Lintian. This arrow didn't aim to kill the enemy, but it would be enough if it could force Chu Lintian to stimulate the power of Tao Insight Realm. Because in this way, if Chu Lintian didn't want to die, he was bound to withdraw from the bloody passage and dare not go forward again. Otherwise, he would suffer a backlash. Puff! Blood burst out. Chu Lintian didn't dodge but resisted Lin Sun's arrow. There was a bloody hole in his right shoulder. Little bastard, wait for me! Chu Lintian's roar of pain and anger came from the bloody passage and soon disappeared. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect that Chu Lintian would be so cruel to himself in order to enter the precious bloodstain. When Lin Sun put away the insignificant bow, most of the practitioners in the field had rushed into the bloody passage. At this moment, no one paid attention to him at all. They all wanted to go crazy and sprint with all their strength. This was a practitioner. In the face of this rare opportunity to enter the precious bloodstain, no one could bear to miss this opportunity. Handsome boy, your strength is good. How about you and I join hands to hunt for treasures after entering the precious bloodstain? Suddenly, a fragrant wind came, and a hot and sexy slim figure appeared. It was Liandye, the successor of the spiritual land of innumerable transformations. Her beautiful eyes flowed with hope, her beautiful figure, and her red lips were like fire. Every smile and frown of hers emitted a bewitching charm. If it were other practitioners, they would have been fascinated and bowed down to her. But Lin Sun just glanced at her and refused indifferently. I'm sorry, I'm used to acting alone. Oh, that's a pity. Liandye sighed faintly. Her figure turned into a colorful light and rushed towards the bloody passage. Lin Sun watched her leave. He took a deep breath and forced himself to restrain the raging power in his body. The battle with Chu Lintian just now was too short, so he couldn't condense the remaining part of the spiritual vein at all. However, as long as he entered the precious bloodstain, there would be many opportunities. Whoosh! Without hesitation, Lin Sun's figure flashed towards the bloody passage and soon disappeared. If this boy is an enemy, he should be killed at the first time. Soon after Lin Sun left, many practitioners who had been secretly watching Lin Sun's movements showed a touch of ruthlessness on their faces. Chapter 454. The sky was dark with blood and filled with ribbons of black mist. It was the evil spirit. Because it was too strong to be dissolved, it floated in the void and was extremely frightening. The ground was red, as if it had been soaked in blood. Rubble was mottled, broken walls could be seen everywhere, and even many decayed corpses, armors, and broken weapons could be seen. This was the precious blood steppe. But when Lin Sun arrived here, he found that it was clearly more like an ancient battlefield. The evil spirit in the air remained unchanged for thousands of years. The surroundings were vast, and the color of blood was steaming. It was filled with a vast, chilling, and frightening atmosphere. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh in the distance, many sex cultivators were flying. They were densely packed as they flew in different directions. It seemed like they all had a target. Lin soon quickly understood that the treasured Bloodfall Plains was a world-renowned place of fortuitous encounters, and it would be opened every once in a while to draw the extraordinary figures of the younger generation from all over the world to enter the treasured Bloodfall Plains to seek fortuitous encounters and ancient treasures. Therefore, for those disciples of ancient sects with great origins and great power, they must have many clues about the precious blood step. Naturally, they wouldn't act like headless flies. Instead, they would go to valuable places of opportunities. Whoosh! Lin Sun took a deep breath and ignored all these. He didn't expect to get any unparalleled opportunities in the precious blood step. It would be enough if he could temper himself in the battle and completely condense a section of the spiritual vein on the 4 acupoints of his heart vessel. After identifying the direction, Lin Sun flew forward without concealing his breath, which seemed extremely powerful. Before long, with a swish, a brilliant cyan glow rushed out of the ruins like a blazing cyan rainbow and quickly soared into the sky. Many practitioners nearby were shocked for a moment, and then they shouted wildly with fanaticism on their faces. "Ancient treasure! It's an ancient treasure! Go after it!" Those practitioners, like sharks smelling blood, flew into the sky and chased it into the distance. Obviously, it was an extremely psychic ancient treasure. After being eroded by countless years, it could still survive to this day and preserve its spirituality. It could be called unparalleled. If they could subdue it, it would be no less than getting a chance. There are still ancient treasures hidden in the ruins? Lin Sun narrowed his black eyes. He saw clearly that the cyan glow just now was a broken animal bone. It was crystal clear, branded with ancient mysterious patterns, and had extraordinary spirituality. Rumble, suddenly, the sound of battle erupted in another direction. A group of cultivators were using secret arts to fight over an ancient treasure. The ancient treasure was a small copper hammer that was bright silver and seemed to possess intelligence. It was unwilling to be subdued, and it fluttered about madly in midair while emanating a terrifying glow that was like lightning. This was obviously a spirit-connecting ancient treasure. The most shocking thing is that some practitioners were unable to dodge in time and were even injured by the silver lightning, causing them to scream miserably. It's at least a heaven-rank ancient treasure. Judging from its power, it's countless times stronger than the heaven-rank spirit weapons forged in the current era. Shocked voices resounded. Some practitioners shouted and rushed towards the battlefield, wanting to fight for that small copper hammer. Lin Sun couldn't help but be moved. They'd just entered the bloodland of treasures, yet 2 ancient treasures had suddenly appeared, and this was too shocking. It was no wonder that so many extraordinary figures that shook the world and even ancient powers were drawn over this time. The treasured Bloodfall Plains was indeed a place of fortune and treasures that lived up to its name. But soon Lin Sun noticed that some peerless successors of ancient sects turned a blind eye to this and concentrated on the deeper ruins. Obviously, there were even more shocking fortuitous encounters hidden within the treasured Bloodfall Plains, and it was drawing those geniuses over. Lin Sun thought for a while, shook his head in the end, and continued to move forward. He was eager to fight, but he wouldn't take the initiative to find trouble. The bloodland of treasures was extremely vast, leading to an endless end. In addition to the rubble and ruins, there were also terrible areas such as broken mountains, abysses, and desolate beaches. Although the world was filled with dim bloody light and evil spirits, there were blazing treasure lights rushing out from time to time, dazzling and dazzling. Suddenly, a scream sounded in the distance, which made Lin Sun narrow his eyes. It was a middle-aged practitioner who was alone like Lin Sun. He had just successfully intercepted a bell-shaped bronze ancient treasure. But before he could be happy, he was besieged by a group of disciples from other sections. He died on the spot before he could warm the treasure. Bah! This kind of wandering cultivator dared to covet such an ancient treasure? He's really reckless. Haha, it's not bad. At least we don't have to waste our energy to subdue the ancient treasure. We just need to kill them and take the ancient treasure. Those disciples were talking excitedly and complacently. It was easy for them to kill people and take their treasures. Hey, isn't he the young man who just fought with Chu Lintian? The disciples of other sects also noticed Lin Sun, and their faces darkened. There was vigilance and undisguised killing intent between their brows. Lin Sun ignored them and continued to move forward. But in his heart, he also sighed with emotion that if he didn't have a strong power, the so-called opportunity would just be a disaster. Why is that boy so easy to talk to? Don't provoke him. He can fight with a strong practitioner in Tao Insight Realm. Our top priority is to seize more spirit treasures as soon as possible. Watching Lin Sun's lonely figure leave, those disciples' eyes flickered, but they finally refrained from making a move. In this way, Lin Sun walked for more than an hour. Along the way, Lin Sun saw many bloody fights, all of which were related to fighting for spirit treasures. He also saw some strong practitioners who died tragically in the competition before they could grab the spirit treasures, just like the middle-aged practitioner. This was a land of fortuitous encounters, but at the same time, it was a burial ground filled with unfathomable dangers. From the beginning to the end, Lin Sun didn't pay attention to it, nor did he fight for it. He just kept moving forward. The precious blood step was incredibly large, and there must be many opportunities. It was not worthwhile for him to take the initiative to cause trouble. Whoosh! Suddenly, a red glow rose and made a low sound. It was a red gourd, which swept out from a rock beside Lin Sun and incinerated the area as if it was burning. Whoosh! Without hesitation, Lin Sun jumped and chased after it. He wouldn't miss such an ancient treasure that came to him. Moreover, this red gourd was obviously extraordinary. It seemed to be only a little bigger than a palm, but its whole body was as smooth as jade. It was enshrouded in red glow and overflowed with terrifying flames, which was really rare. Boom! Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and the surging spiritual light swept out, covering the red gourd in an instant as if it were covering the sky and the earth. However, as the gourd rotated, it turned into a wave of fire, which was as brilliant as a golden crow, and broke free. What? Lin Sun's eyes couldn't help brightening. This treasure was unpredictable. Boom! He exerted all his strength, and the light green glow was rolling. But almost at the same time, with a buzzing sound, the void trembled slightly, and a Milky Way appeared and swept towards Lin Sun. This was a terrible saber light, which was going to kill Lin Sun. With ice drake steps, Lin Sun's figure flashed and he narrowly avoided the attack. The saber light split a boulder not far away in an instant, and the cut was as smooth as a mirror. This saber was so sharp that if he was cut by it, he would definitely die. When all this happened, a figure rushed out from the void in the distance and took away the red gourd with a wave of his sleeve. Lin Sun's indifferent face darkened, and a trace of violent killing intent filled his eyes. The one who attacked him was an old man in a white robe with gray hair and beard, and the one who snatched the red gourd was a vigorous middle-aged man with a scar on his cheek. Obviously, the two had planned this for a long time. One intercepted Lin Sun, and the other snatched the ancient treasure. They cooperated seamlessly at the same time. Ha ha ha, this treasure is full of spirit and intact. It's really rare. The vigorous middle-aged man laughed. Young man, this treasure is taken by our Golden Light sect. If you don't want to die, get out of here. On the other side, the old man in a white robe scolded Lin Sun coldly. As he spoke, there was a sound of breaking the air in the distance. They were all young men and women, and they gathered with the old man in a white robe and the vigorous middle-aged man. Obviously, they were all from the Golden Light sect. You shouldn't have provoked me. Lin Sun's voice was indifferent. The ancient treasure was intercepted by others, which made Lin Sun angry. Really? Do you think you can fight with Chu Lintian, so you dare to speak so arrogantly? You're courting death. The old man in a white robe sneered. Obviously, he knew Lin Sun. Lin Sun didn't talk nonsense anymore. His figure flashed, and he rushed out. His body was like a big abyss that had been suppressed for a long time, bursting out a terrible power. Boom! He punched out, and the sound shook the sky. "You're really courting death." The old man in a white robe's face darkened. A silver saber appeared in his hand, and he rushed out. A terrible collision sounded, and the void was turbulent. The old man in a white robe was shaken by this punch, and his saber wailed. His face suddenly changed, and he finally realized how terrible Lin Sun was. "Let's go together. Finish it quickly." On the other side, the vigorous middle-aged man let out a roar, which was quite powerful. He cast a secret method, setting off thousands of black lights, and crushed Lin Sun. Kill! The young men and women of the Golden Light sect no longer looked on coldly, and they all attacked, surrounding Lin Sun. In this precious blood steppes there were no rules at all. In order to kill Lin Sun in the shortest time, no one would care about their face anymore. After all, there were many forces in this precious blood steppes, and if they delayed for a long time, they would inevitably attract covetous eyes. Boom boom, a great battle broke out here. Lin Sun's black hair was dancing wildly, and his expression was indifferent. The breath around him was like a boiling abyss, with a momentum that could devour the sky and the earth. He fought against all the enemies alone, and he was not suppressed. He seemed to be extremely powerful. This made all the people of the Golden Light sect change their faces. They didn't expect that under such circumstances, Lin Sun's fighting capacity was still so terrible and difficult to suppress. After a while, with a bang, Lin Sun's fist smashed the void, and the chest of a young man who rushed in the front was shattered. A bloody hole appeared in the air, and blood spread. The young man let out a shrill scream, flew out fiercely, and died on the spot. This made the young men and women change their faces again. Only when they fought with Lin Sun did they finally understand his nature-defying and ferocity. He was not like a practitioner at the late stage of Sea Spirit Realm at all, but more like a young devil who could compete with the existence of Tao Insight Realm. Chapter 455. Heaven and earth trembled, and gorgeous multicolored light surged. Lin Sun's body was like an abyss and his momentum was like a demon. He performed the 9 strikes for shaking heaven to the extreme. Although he was fighting alone against enemies from all directions, he faintly emanated an aura of disdain. Rumble! The force of his fist surged while light green divine lights blazed, and the phenomena of mountains collapsing, oceans collapsing, space collapsing, pythons soaring through the sky, and so on and so forth could be seen within it. It was inconceivable. Not good. The white-robed elder's expression changed slightly, and he blocked with all his might. In the end, however, he was forced back. The fist force swept out, smashing a young man beside him into the air. Blood sprayed from his mouth, and he let out a miserable shriek. Others exclaimed and were shocked and angry. They couldn't imagine how Lin Sun's fighting power could be so terrible. They had already dispatched more than a dozen people, and there were 2 Tao Insight Realm strongmen in charge. Although these 2 Paradise Realm experts had suppressed their cultivation to the Sea of Soul Realm, they were able to control the power of mentalities. Their battle techniques were extraordinary, and they could sweep away all Sea of Soul Realm existences. But now they couldn't do anything to Lin Sun. On the contrary, they were almost overwhelmed. Kill! Suddenly, the middle-aged man took out a frost-like spirit sword, which turned into a waterfall and chopped towards Lin Sun. Lin Sun waved his fist to meet the spiritual sword head-on. The terrifying fist force actually made the spiritual sword wail and tremble. The lean middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. This kid is going against the heavens. If you don't use the power of the Tao Insight Realm, all of you will be killed today. Lin Sun said indifferently. It seemed to be a reminder, but in fact, the fighting intent in his body was surging, and his power was extremely violent as if it was burning. He urgently needed a real strong person to fight against him. That was why he made a sound to provoke the other party. Damn it! Use your full strength and kill him! The white-robed old man roared as he waved his palm, and the silver blade carried a secret technique that destroyed yin and yang, reversed the 5 elements, and was peerlessly terrifying. Almost at the same time, other people present also gritted their teeth and used all their strength to cast all kinds of secret methods and treasures to kill Lin Sun. Lin Sun's black eyes brightened. He finally felt a kind of pressure which stimulated his blood to boil. Now this is interesting. He let out a long roar that shook the heavens and the earth. His battle intent erupted like a volcano. At this moment, Lin Sun almost forgot about the scarlet fire gourd that had been taken away. He was completely immersed in the terrifying battle. Inside his body, the new origin spirit meridian shone with a bright and holy luster. As if it was breathing, it began to condense bit by bit. Bang! Not long after, a long spear was smashed by Lin Sun. The woman holding the spear had no time to dodge and was drowned by the vast wind of Lin Sun's fist. Blood spurted out and she died on the spot. Shocked and furious shouts resounded in the surroundings. Many people's eyes almost split apart from rage, and their eyes had turned red. Up to now, Lin Sun had killed 2 of them, but Lin Sun was unscathed. Moreover, the more he fought, the braver he became, and the stronger his strength was. This was too terrifying. Who had ever seen someone who could continuously increase their strength in battle? Who had ever seen a mere late Sea of Soul Realm youngster in a tight encirclement display such an invincible attitude? Kill! The white-robed old man's expression was livid while his killing intent surged like tidewater, and his entire body seethed with multicolored light. He'd fallen completely into explosive rage. But even so, he endured it and did not open the seal in his body to restore his grotto heaven realm technique. Not only him, but also the sturdy middle-aged man. This made Lin Sun frown a little. Up to this point, these 2 strong men of grotto heaven realm were still fighting with the strength of sea spirit realm. They were too patient. Immediately, Lin Sun vaguely understood that it was not that they didn't want to do so, but that they didn't dare to do so. The precious blood step was full of taboo power, and only practitioners of sea spirit realm could enter it safely. These old guys who suppressed their cultivation to sea spirit realm obviously dared not to show the power of grotto heaven realm, for fear of causing the backlash of taboo power. With a bang, Lin Sun showed his power again. The void seemed to explode, and the fist force gushed out like a flood. It was too vast and dense and unmatched. In an instant, the sturdy middle-aged man was shaken and coughed up blood. His face was pale and full of resentment, unwillingness, and irritation. "Goulet, take them away!" The white-robed old man roared and rushed over first. His figure suddenly burst out a terrifying aura and soared into the sky. It was as if he had turned into another person in an instant, which was extremely terrifying. Boom! The airwaves overflowed and the void exploded. The blazing silver clouds swept across, suppressing Lin Sun's figure. Obviously, the white-robed old man realized the seriousness of the situation and couldn't tolerate Lin Sun's arrogance anymore. So he took a risky move and displayed the power of a strong practitioner of grotto heaven realm. Crack! Lin Sun was not surprised but happy. His body was shining. He used ice dragon steps, steaming clouds and divine light, and fought with the white-robed old man. At the same time, the sturdy middle-aged man called Gu Lei shouted, and took the other young people of Golden Light sect to flee to the distance without hesitation. The white-robed old man had obviously decided to take a risk and fight for a chance to escape for them. At this time, even if Gu Lei was angry in his heart, he could only choose to dodge temporarily. Want to escape? Die. Lin Sun's figure was like a dragon. With a clang, he unsheathed his saber and chopped out the RFS without hesitation. The world seemed to fall into the eternal night, and thousands of stars fell. The earth-shattering power of destruction suddenly appeared in the saber, and it dominated the universe. Obviously, the power of the RFS at this time was completely different from before. The spread of the terrifying aura made it difficult for the white-robed old man to stop it. Puff, puff. Wherever the saber passed through the void, there were signs of destruction like the sinking of the eternal night. Many practitioners of Golden Light's sect who had just escaped were swept by it on the spot. Some arms were cut off, some had their backs broken, and some were directly lifted off the top of their heads, screaming incessantly. Ah, no! The scene was fierce and horrible, as if nothing could not be broken. Under the saber, 3 or 4 people were killed and 7 or 8 were seriously injured. Even Goulet was oppressed. He staggered and almost fell from the void. That kind of power made people tremble and their souls tremble. It was too horrible. The RFS was amazing. Damn it! The white-robed old man was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. He didn't expect that he could not suppress Lin Sun even though he had displayed the cultivation of Tao Insight Realm. Instead, Lin Sun killed them and injured them seriously. It was so hateful. Clang. He used a secret technique. The silver blade swept through the air, stirring up thousands of heavy waves. In a trance, it was as if he had transformed into a huge, vicious beast. It was as tall as a mountain, and its entire body was densely covered in scales that flickered with cold light. Roar! This blow contained the essence of the artistic conception. As soon as it was produced, the wind and clouds in the sky surged, and there seemed to be a taboo power accumulating. Lin Sun's eyes suddenly narrowed and he felt a great pressure, but he was not afraid. He rushed up and still looked disdainful. Bang! 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 In an instant, the two of them fought for hundreds of rounds, and the sand and stones were flying, the void collapsed, and the sun and moon lost their light. Lin Sun was indeed frustrated, but he seemed to feel no pain and continued to rush forward. His power was still rising in the confrontation. The white-robed old man was so angry that he almost went crazy. He finally realized why Lin Sun could fight against Chu Lintian before. This guy was simply a monster. The more he was defeated, the braver he became, and the stronger he fought. It seemed that he could not be killed at all. Again, Lin Sun's long hair was flying in the air, and his black eyes were like a surging abyss, as if to devour the world. The purple soul saber was flowing with bright light, shooting at the bull. If you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. The white-robed old man flew into a rage. Being forced to such a point, he was about to go crazy. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. A black flag flew out. After being stained with the blood essence, it made a surging sound like wind and thunder. Boom! With a gentle shake, ghosts cried and gods howled, and monstrous killing intent spread. This was obviously an extremely terrible treasure. The surging killing intent was like the wind from hell raging in the world. Lin Sun's whole body was stiff, and he was shaken back by the terrible force. His pupils suddenly condensed. This treasure was so terrible. Looking at the white-robed old man again, he was surrounded by a layer of black smoke. Holding the black flag in his hand, he suddenly turned into a Hell Shura, releasing an oppressive force. It could be vaguely seen that there were dense and obscure spiritual tattoos flashing around him, which looked mysterious and terrible. Armor with spiritual tattoos. Lin Sun was shocked. He finally recognized that the black flag in the hand of the white-robed old man was a terrible armor treasure. Kill! The white-robed old man roared. The flag shook and ghosts cried and gods howled. The sound waves shocked the soul, and the killing intent surged like a tide. His power became different. In the blink of an eye, Lin Sun couldn't raise his head. The power was so strong that Lin Sun coughed up blood again and again. It was the first time for him to resist the power of the armor with spiritual tattoos since he started his cultivation. He finally understood the horror of such a treasure. Boom! Soon, he was hit and flew away. But what excited Lin Sun was that after this ordeal, The raging power in his body was greatly tempered, and the speed of the new spiritual vein transformation was obviously accelerated. "Kill!" Lin Sun shouted, and the purple soul saber in his hand burst into a ray of light. There was a faint phenomenon of stars floating and sinking in the saber chi, like a galaxy sweeping. Still not dead. The white-robed old man was shocked and angry, his beard and hair flying. Boom. However, when the white-robed old man was about to continue to suppress Lin Sun, he saw a strange bloody vortex above the sky filled with forbidden power. This, not good. The white-robed old man was so shocked that his soul almost flew out. This was the forbidden power. Because he used the power of Tao Insight Realm, he finally attracted the backfire of this world. He suddenly jumped and fled to the distance, and began to restrain his breath and suppress his cultivation. The forbidden power was extraordinary. Under one blow, no matter how high his cultivation was, he would be killed on the spot. It was not something a human could resist at all. Lin Sun looked up at the sky and his heart palpitated. But in the end, he gritted his teeth and directly chased the white-robed old man. Boom! In the end, the white-robed old man couldn't escape. He was hit by a strange bloody light falling from the sky. With a terrible scream, he fell from the void. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun suddenly performed Ice Dragon Step. Like a flash of lightning, he swept past the white-robed old man and took the black flag. Almost at the same time, another strange bloody light fell. The white-robed old man's body melted like ice and snow, and was obliterated, leaving nothing. Chapter 456. A strong practitioner of Tao Insight Realm finally died in the forbidden power of heaven and earth, which surprised and moved Lin Sun. But more than that, he felt a sense of loss. If the forbidden power hadn't come, there should have been enough hope to condense a complete spiritual vein in the battle just now. Unfortunately, it was stopped now. In his palm, the black flag emitted an obscure luster. Lin Sun glanced at it and couldn't help feeling a little distressed. This armor with spiritual tattoos was damaged by the forbidden power just now. I can only wait for a chance to repair it in the future. Lin Sun put away the black flag, took a deep breath, and looked into the distance. Just now, Gu Lei fled in that direction with some seriously injured successors of Golden Light Sect, and it didn't take long. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure flashed and disappeared. He couldn't tolerate that his scarlet fire gourd was taken away. That boy is so terrible! As soon as Lin Sun left, many practitioners emerged in the nearby area. They were all horrified. Obviously, they had witnessed the battle just now. Alone, he defeated the Golden Light Sect. Even Liang Yaozhen, a Tao Insight Realm powerhouse, was forced to use all his strength. In the end, he died tragically under the forbidden power. This ending is too miserable. Many people sighed and their faces changed. Who is that boy on Earth? His combat power is so terrible. Isn't it enough for him to defeat all opponents in the precious blood field? Yes, with the existence of the forbidden power between heaven and earth, those strong practitioners of Tao Insight Realm dare not use their real power at all unless they are forced to a critical moment. But this boy is different. His combat power is enough to confront a practitioner of Tao Insight Realm, which is very frightening. When those practitioners talked about Lin Sun, they all showed fear on their faces. They couldn't imagine where this demon-like teenager came from and why he had been unknown before. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure swept through the air, and his huge spiritual power spread out, searching for the breath of those successors of Golden Light Sect all the way. At the same time, he was also feeling his own strength. The violent and turbulent power in his body was surging all the time, which was extremely dangerous. In the 4 acupoints of Heart Vessel, the new spiritual vein was still one step away from being condensed. This made Lin Sun feel helpless. This was the barrier in cultivation. The spirit vein of origin belonged to the extremely special talent of devouring the abyss, which was unparalleled in the world. After being poached away, Lin Sun didn't expect to have the chance to get it back. Yet now, under a fortuitous coincidence, he'd finally obtained the hope of a new life with great difficulty, yet his wish hadn't been fulfilled until now. This wasn't as simple as bad luck. To be more precise, the origin spirit vein that was reborn was very likely to be too powerful and heaven-defying, causing the difficulty of condensing it to be doubled. Sometimes, Lin Sun had to wonder if there was a force that had been preventing all this from happening. For example, when he fought with Daoist Xiong, the latter retreated without achieving anything. For example, when he was fighting with Chu Lintian, he was interrupted by the sudden opening of the tunnel. Just now, in the battle with the white-robed old man, Lin Sun was about to get what he wanted, but in the end, a taboo force appeared and killed the white-robed old man. If it had only happened once, it would have been fine. But it happened 3 times in a row, which made Lin Sun wonder if it was because his new origin spirit vein was too special, which made everything go wrong. No matter what, no one can stop me from regaining the power of devouring the abyss in the precious bloodland this time. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun's black eyes were full of determination. After half an hour, Lin Sun suddenly stopped. In the void in the distance, a battle had just ended. What made Lin Sun's face sink was that the practitioners who were slaughtered in that battle were the practitioners of Golden Light Sect. And the one who did all this was a sexy and beautiful woman with a slim and hot figure. Her skin was crystal white, her appearance was charming, and her eyebrows were full of charm. It was Liandye, the successor of the spiritual land of innumerable transformations. Even Gu Lei, a practitioner of Tao Insight Realm, was killed, which was a shocking scene. Liandye was in it, graceful and graceful. Her slender and white fingertips were playing with a crystal red gourd. Her beautiful eyes were full of expectation, and the corners of her mouth were curled up in a smile. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that such a charming woman had just killed all the descendants of Golden Light Sect by herself. "Ah, handsome boy, we meet again." Liandye didn't seem to be surprised to find Lin Sun. She walked lightly and crossed the void. Her skin was white and smooth, and she swayed when she walked. "Give me back that ancient treasure." Lin Sun stared at Liandye indifferently. "I was the one who snatched it." "Little handsome, are you sure you're not mistaken?" Liandye blinked her beautiful eyes and slightly raised the corners of her mouth. Her teeth were crystal white, which made her look a little cunning and naughty. If it was any other cultivator, that cultivator would have probably been aroused by her world-shocking charm to the point that his heart and blood would be in turmoil. But Lin Sun was unmoved and said, "When I was fighting with the descendants of Golden Light Sect, you were hiding in the dark and watching. Now you are snatching food from the tiger's mouth. Do you really think I don't know?" Liandye was slightly stunned and clapped her hands in admiration. "Amazing. I didn't misjudge you. Handsome boy, you are really amazing." This was equivalent to admitting it. "Give it to me." Lin Sun's words were tough, and it seemed that he would draw his sword if there was any disagreement. "Little handsome, you're too heartless. I've done you a favor, but is this how you treat me?" Liandye frowned and said pitifully. Her red lips slightly curled, and a section of crystal white skin overflowed from her plump chest. Her posture was captivating. Clang! Lin Sun didn't talk nonsense at all. He took out the purple soul saber and pointed it at Liandye. Even a fool would understand what he meant. Finally, Liandye's expression changed slightly, but she didn't get angry. Instead, she sighed faintly and threw the scarlet fire gourd to Lin Sun. "Are you satisfied now?" Liandye had a trace of resentment between her brows. Lin Sun was slightly surprised that he could get the scarlet fire gourd so easily. He stared at Liandye for a while, then he put away his saber and turned to leave. This woman had a beauty that could bring calamity to a country and people, and it was originally very pleasing to the eye. But to Lin Sun, this kind of woman was difficult to provoke. She was unpredictable, and since she could kill the descendants of Golden Light sect by herself, her combat strength was definitely terrifying. Lin Sun didn't want to have too much contact with her. "Hey, are you going to leave just like that? Aren't you too heartless?" Lien Ye chased after him angrily. She glared at him with her almond-shaped eyes and bit her plump red lips lightly, which had a unique seductive charm. "What else do you want?" Lin Sun frowned. The more Lien Ye acted like this, the more vigilant he was. "Don't you understand? I want to cooperate with you and seek a great opportunity." Lien Ye seemed to have noticed that if she didn't show sincerity, it would be difficult to obtain Lin Sun's approval, so she directly and frankly stated her intentions. "Why me?" Lin Sun glanced at her. "It's very simple. You're very strong, extraordinarily strong. Moreover, I can see that your strength is still undergoing transformation." Lien Ye's beautiful eyes flickered with extraordinary splendor. "Perhaps it's nothing in the outside world, but in the precious blood plains, the strength you possess is worthy of me befriending you and working together to achieve great things." Lin Sun understood what she meant, and he couldn't help but be surprised. This woman's insight was really sharp. Indeed, in the precious blood plains, Tao Insight Realm experts didn't dare to use their true strength, as they were worried that it would cause a backlash from the forbidden power. Under such circumstances, Lin Sun, who possessed strength that didn't belong to a Tao Insight Realm expert, was undoubtedly very special. "How about it? Do you want to take the risk?" Lien Ye stared at Lin Sun with a rare serious expression on her beautiful oval face. "I can tell you that if you're able to seize this opportunity, not only will you be able to obtain many incredible ancient treasures, you'll even be able to obtain the secret technique inheritance of Luohu Demon King." Luohu Demon King. Lin Sun was shocked in his heart, and he recalled some things he'd heard from Ren Miao Miao. According to rumor, Mount Luohu was the burial place of a Luohu Demon King that possessed extraordinary might during the primeval times. If the inheritance left behind by this almighty figure was really hidden in the precious blood plains, then this fortuitous encounter could really be considered as unparalleled. A wisp of a faint smile arose on the corners of Lien Ye's mouth. She knew that Lin Sun was moved, and this caused her to be very satisfied. She felt that it was within reason. After all, how could any cultivator refuse such an unparalleled fortuitous encounter? But unexpectedly, Lin Sun shook his head and refused in the end. "Sorry, I'm not interested in all of this." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. "You?" Lien Ye was utterly stunned, and she didn't dare believe her ears. This fellow actually refused? After that, a wisp of anger arose between her brows. As an inheritor of the myriad spiritual abode, she was a peerless figure that was renowned in the outside world, and she was feared and taken seriously by others no matter where she went. But now, she'd tried to make friends with him with sincerity, but the young man refused repeatedly and gave her the cold shoulder. She'd never experienced such a feeling before. "Little bastard, you're really infuriating. Don't let me run into you again, otherwise, I'll squeeze out all your blood essence and eat you." Seeing Lin Sun's figure disappear, Lien Ye gnashed her teeth in anger, stomped her feet with hatred, and then turned around and left swiftly. "This woman must be very dissatisfied with me, right?" In the distance, Lin Sun seemed to be lost in thought, but then he shook his head. Lien Ye's so-called cooperation was indeed very attractive. Unfortunately, Lin Sun wanted to condense the spiritual vein first, so he naturally wasn't interested in it. More importantly, he couldn't see through Lien Ye's true intentions at all. This was what Lin Sun feared the most. For safety's sake, he would rather stay away from this outrageously sexy woman than risk his life. Whoosh! Without thinking any further, Lin Sun chose a direction and flew away. On the way, he took out the crimson flame gourd and started to carefully inspect it. This was the first time he'd obtained an ancient treasure, and he was extremely curious about exactly how miraculous this treasure was, since it was able to survive from the ancient times until now and still maintain its intelligence without being destroyed. Chapter 457. If an ancient treasure was psychic, it must be a spiritual treasure first and foremost. As a young master of spiritual tattoos, Lin Sun naturally knew this. Although a spiritual weapon was powerful, it was obviously much weaker than a spiritual treasure of the same level. The reason was that a spiritual treasure had a unique treasure light and spirituality, while a spiritual weapon didn't. But in contrast, an ancient treasure that could survive from ancient times to the present without being eroded by the power of time and maintain a complete spirituality was obviously more magical. Like the purple soul saber in Lin Sun's hand, it was also a spiritual treasure. But Lin Sun was very sure that if the purple soul saber survived for thousands of years, it would have been obliterated by the erosion of time. In this way, the unique value of an ancient treasure was reflected. The red fire gourd in Lin Sun's hand was an ancient treasure, and its spirituality was flowing. It was intact and extremely magical, as if it was psychic. Its surface was as smooth as fire jade, shining brightly like a burning divine flame. If one looked carefully, one would notice that there were mysterious and obscure spirit markings branded on it. They were like cloud markings, and they were carved with ancient sacrificial diagrams of the ancestors, flowers, birds, insects, and fish. A strand of natural spirituality lingered and surged on them as if they were alive. If that was all, it was no different from the purple soul saber in Lin Sun's hand. The key was that the spiritual tattoos on the gourd contained an indescribable ancient Taoist rhyme, which made it completely different all of a sudden. Taoist rhyme was the rhyme of the Great Way, like aura and traces, mysterious and unpredictable. A spiritual treasure should have Taoist rhyme. It was no wonder that it could survive from ancient times to the present and still maintain its integrity and full of spirituality. It could be said to be invaluable in the world. Lin Sun withdrew his gaze, and his heart was also excited. He began to carefully figure out the magic of this treasure. The mouth of the gourd was sealed by the mysterious tattoos, and the steaming flame was like a bright seal, intact. Obviously, no matter if it was Gu Lei from the Golden Light sect or Lian Dai Yi who obtained this treasure, none of them had the time to explore the profundities of this treasure. Bang! The seal was opened and a purple flame swept out. Boom! The void was burned in an instant, producing a terrible scorching wave and spreading around. The nearby clouds were evaporated and the air crackled. The terrible scene made Lin's heart tremble. The power of the purple clouds was so terrible that it could burn the river and boil the sea. When the mouth of the gourd no longer spat out purple light, Lin Sun's perception power quietly probed into it. One drop of blood. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes at once. In the gourd there was a drop of blood, which was purple and magnificent. In the small drop of blood there was terrible bright lightning looming, producing a terrible destructive breath. Hiss! Lin Sun gasped. It was just a drop of blood, but it seemed to gather vast power, giving people indescribable suffocating oppression. It was too frightening. Boom! Suddenly, a wisp of electric arc burst out from the drop of purple blood. Like a sharp blade, it rushed into Lin's perception and rushed to Lin's soul. With a muffled groan, Lin operated star circulation and extinguished the hair-like electric arc in an instant. Despite this being the case, his soul was still shaken and shaken. He didn't hesitate to seal the gourd again. What is this? Why is it sealed in the gourd? Lin Sun was surprised. He thought that the red fire gourd was a powerful ancient killing weapon, but now it seemed that its existence was obviously to seal a drop of purple blood in it. Immediately, Lin Sun's sea of consciousness came to a realization. It turned out to be the trace left by the electric arc after it was erased. The most amazing thing was that the trace was an indifferent and cold roar. Old Wujiu, sooner or later, when I get out of trouble, I will wash Tai Pure Land with blood. The voice shook Lin's sea of consciousness and made Lin's blood boil. Fortunately, it disappeared quickly. Otherwise, Lin soon suspected that this voice alone could shatter his soul and obliterate his body. Wujio? Tai Pure Land? This strange word surprised Lin soon. Was the voice the owner of the drop of purple blood? Lin soon thought for a moment, gritted his teeth, opened the seal of the gourd again, and divided a wisp of perception power into it like last time. Crack, sure enough, the drop of purple blood once again burst out a thin silver electric arc and rushed into the power of perception. Lin soon had prepared for it and obliterated it with the star circulation. Damn it! I'm determined to prove my Tao, but I'm suppressed by you despicable people. You've taken away 3,000 blood essences from my heart. Lin Sun frowned. 3,000 blood essences? Could it be that the drop of purple blood sealed in the gourd came from here? Next, Lin Sun continued to divide his mind to perceive the inside of the gourd. How laughable and lamentable! For the sake of fighting for the karmic ranking, he actually suffered such hardship. The heavens are truly heartless. Humph! Spirit refining gourd? Do you think you can obliterate my will and seize the essence of Tao in my blood essences? Wishful thinking. One day your Tai Pure Land will also suffer a catastrophe. It will be abandoned by God and not tolerated by Tao. The voice roared and was extremely icy cold, and it revealed boundless resentment, sorrow, and even monstrous hatred that was impossible to restrain. The content of the words was also disorderly and clueless. After a long time, Lin soon calmed down and analyzed that these voices belonged to the remaining mind in the drop of purple blood, which obviously came from a big shot in ancient times. The meaning of the thought was very simple. When the master of the purple blood was proving his Tao, he was ambushed. He was ambushed by a old man Wujio from the Tai Pure Land and others, and he was finally suppressed. And the 3,000 drops of blood essences in the body of the master of the purple blood were also taken away. The blood essences contained the essence of Tao of the master of the purple blood. In order to refine it, old Wujio sacrificed the spirit refining gourd and sealed it. It turns out that this treasure is the spirit refining gourd. The drop of purple blood sealed in it must be one of the 3,000 drops of blood essences that contain the essence of Tao. Lin soon understood. The essence of Tao was a legendary magical power that contained the inheritance of Tao. In this way, the 3,000 drops of blood essences meant 3,000 kinds of inheritance of Tao. It could be inferred how terrifying the cultivation of the master of the purple blood was at that time. What a treasure! Lin Sun was excited. Not to mention that the spirit-refining gourd was a kind of psychic ancient treasure, even the mysterious drop of purple blood sealed in it was invaluable. If Lien Ye knew this, it would be impossible for her to return the spirit-refining gourd to him so easily. Lin Sun took a deep breath and carefully put away the spirit-refining gourd. Now the time didn't allow him to comprehend too much. Maybe he would have the energy and time to comprehend the mystery of the spirit-refining gourd and the drop of purple blood after completely condensing the new spiritual vein in his body. Lin Sun continued on his way. Boom! Before long, when he passed by a dark, barren, and broken mountain range, there was a thunderous sound of fighting in the distant void. Chapter 458. Rumble. The sound of the fierce battle was like the cry of the gods. The distant void was filled with blazing light, as if there was a river of stars flowing there, which was a terrible scene. Oh, run! This blade is too terrible. It's not something that Sea's spirit realm can resist. Someone roared. Over there, like a tide, practitioners covered their heads and fled in panic. Their faces were pale and frightened. Among them, there was no lack of successors of ancient sections. They were all on the run, living in a constant state of anxiety. What on earth is that broken blade? How can it be so terrible and kill so many heroes? Run! A young man carrying a golden spear roared and crossed the void like lightning. He was a peerless figure named Ran-een from the Gathering Stars Pavilion, an ancient orthodoxy. In the distance, Lin soon squinted his eyes and saw a saber light of starlight sweeping across the sky in the void. The light was blazing, as if wrapped in stars, illuminating the mountains and rivers. Many practitioners fled in panic, exclaiming and shouting. It was a broken blade. The pitch-black blade was steaming with starlight, which was silver and terrifying like a river of stars rolling backward. Lin Sun was shocked at once. A broken blade, like a king in the world, suppressed a group of practitioners? Just how powerful was this ancient treasure to possess such heaven-defying might? Originally, Lin Sun thought that the spirit-refining gourd he obtained was amazing enough, but compared with this broken blade, it was dull. It was not because of its power, but because of its spirituality. The broken blade seemed to be intelligent. Silver starlight swept across the world. It was comparable to a powerful existence of Tao Insight Realm, conquering mountains and rivers. Puff! Blood splashed. A middle-aged practitioner was still fleeing. He was cut off by a sharp starlight, and his head was thrown into the air. Blood spurted high, and his body fell to the ground. On the other side, some young people with lower cultivation screamed. They were covered by the silver starlight, and their bodies were burned into ashes in an instant, leaving no bone residue. This scene was extremely terrible. A broken blade, like a spirit, killed practitioners in all directions. It was dazzling and turned the world into a bloody purgatory. Run! Those cultivators all went crazy, and they were terrified to the extreme. The power of that broken blade was too mysterious and boundless. It splashed out surging starlight, and everywhere it passed, there was simply no one who could resist it. In just a few breaths, Lin Sun saw at least 20 practitioners die tragically, which was a thrilling scene. This was what Lin Sun saw. Before he arrived, there were probably more practitioners who died under this broken sword. So powerful! Even Lin Sun was moved and excited. This broken blade was obviously a weapon that had survived from the primeval times, and even if it was amongst the numerous ancient treasures that had been left behind in the treasured Bloodfall Plains, it could be considered to be at the top of a terrifying level. The most horrifying thing was that it was in damaged ancient treasure, and the edge of its blade was damaged. It was truly unimaginable how terrifying its might was when it was in perfect condition all those years ago. The previous fierce battle must have been because of the appearance of the broken blade. It had caused the Xiozhi to covet it and wanted it for themselves. However, no one could have imagined that this broken blade would be so shocking. Lin Sun was shocked all over. He saw many practitioners fleeing towards him in the distance, and behind them, the broken blade wrapped in bright light was chasing them. Those practitioners also saw Lin Sun standing there, but none of them paid attention to him. They were all fleeing frantically. Obviously, the power of the broken blade had scared them to death. "Boy, which family are you from? Don't you want to live? Run!" An old man in a green robe passed by and saw Lin Sun standing there motionless. He thought Lin Sun was scared silly, so he couldn't help but remind him sternly. "Run!" Lin Sun's black eyes burst with a blazing light. Under the horrified gaze of the old man in a green robe, Lin Sun took the initiative to approach the broken blade. "This boy is crazy." The old man in a green robe stiffened all over and scolded loudly. "For such an unparalleled fierce blade, he even wants to die. How stupid he is!" Many practitioners in the distance also saw Lin Sun, and they were all shocked. No one had expected that the broken blade was so terrible that it could slaughter heroes from all directions. But in such a situation, there were still people who didn't know life and death and wanted to get it. This was absolutely suicidal. Lin Sun's figure was shining, and the blazing cyan light was surging. The violent and turbulent power in his body was almost out of control. The power of the broken blade was infinite, but for Lin Sun, it was like the best opponent, so that he could temper himself and condense the spiritual veins in the battle. Perhaps this was crazy, but Lin Sun refused to miss this opportunity. Clang! The purple soul saber was unsheathed, making a clear sound that resounded through the sky. It slashed at the incoming broken blade and suppressed it. With one slash, the sky and the earth changed color, as if the eternal night was coming, and strange phenomena appeared. This was reaching for the stars. Lin Sun seemed to be crazy, but he dared not to be careless at all. The breath of the broken blade was so terrible that it was even fiercer than that of ordinary Tao Insight realm. Crack! In the distance, the broken blade shone, and a silver starlight swept over. In a twinkling of an eye, the saber was destroyed and Lin Sun was shaken away. He coughed up blood and his face was pale. Just one blow let him know the terrible power of the broken blade. In the void, the broken blade was steaming with dazzling starlight. It released rays of light, falling like the Milky Way. When Lin Sun's figure was about to be submerged, he let out a long roar, his black hair flying, and swept the purple soul saber again. The brilliant saber chi rose to the sky, grand and vast, like the bright moon rising from the blue sea, illuminating the past and the present. Moon reaching! Boom! The world resonated and roared constantly. This place was shrouded in blazing light, which made people dare not look at it. Many people were horrified and closed their eyes, feeling uneasy. The silver light burst, and Lin Sun was shaken back. His whole body seemed to be torn by sharp blades, and the unhealed sword wound became more terrible. He coughed up blood again and again, but he didn't die. All the practitioners present were shocked and stopped running. They couldn't believe that someone could resist the attack of the broken blade. Crack! The broken blade seemed to be enraged by Lin Sun. Stars appeared one after another, wrapped in silver airwaves, and crushed Lin Sun. Boom! This was another head-on confrontation. This entire area of space wailed, and some of the nearby mountains were crushed into powder and collapse. Some practitioners who didn't have time to escape were directly affected and fell to the ground with a thud. With a swoosh, Lin Sun's figure rushed out of the bright silver starlight, but his appearance was even more miserable and terrible. His whole body was bleeding, and the dripping blood dyed the void red. He stood with the saber in his hand, his black eyes like lightning. His breath was like an erupting abyss, setting off a raging storm. It seemed that he was not seriously injured in the confrontation, but became more and more powerful. Who is he? This was the question in many people's mind. They were shocked by this scene. The broken blade was so horrible that it had conquered the world and killed many heroes. No one dared to fight against it. But now, a young man came with a saber. Although he was seriously injured, he resisted several attacks of the broken blade. God, it's him! The brutal young man who had fought against the Tao Insight realm of the Eastern Pole sword sect before. Some practitioners in the distance also stopped and looked surprised. They recognized Lin Sun and let out a burst of exclamation. He once killed a heavenly insight realm expert, Qian Huai, and fought Daoist Xiong equally, causing Daoist Xiong to retreat without accomplishing anything. Now, he's actually ferocious to the point of wanting to go against that broken blade. Who is he? Why haven't I heard of his name before? From all directions, exclamations of bewilderment could be heard. Boom! In the void, the broken blade burst out with divine power, flying under the sky, setting off starlight like a sharp waterfall. That might caused many Xiozhi to tremble and find it hard to speak, almost suffocating. But Lin Sun was not afraid. His momentum soared like a demon looking down on the world. With a bang, he rushed over with the ice dragon step. The two collided with each other. Starlight filled the sky, and the saber light swept the world. This scene was too magnificent and soul-stirring. Then, the area exploded and the light bloomed. The broken blade shot down, and the dazzling light filled every inch of space like stars. There was no way to avoid it. Under such suppression, Lin Sun kept coughing up blood and staggered back frequently. His body was like broken cotton, dripping blood. But the more it was like this, the more powerful his momentum was. Like a furnace in chaos, he burned all his essence, chi, and spirit to resist. This was a violent earthquake. The sky was surging like blood, and there were terrible murderous intent and turbulence everywhere. The bright light swept across like the end of the world. Although he was seriously injured, he blocked it. At some point in time, the cultivators who had been running away stopped at the same time. They stood in the distance and watched the battle with shocked expressions. See Spirit Realm. He has not even reached Tao Insight Realm, but he blocked that fierce blade. This young man is so strong. Did you see that? His body is about to be blown up, but his momentum is getting stronger and stronger. Does he practice some kind of peerless secret method that can improve himself in battle? Impossible. There must be a treasure house of power sealed in his body, and now in the battle, it is opened layer by layer. A group of practitioners discussed, with their eyes flickering in surprise and doubt. That broken blade had even easily slaughtered a man in Tao Insight Realm before, who had no time to show his real power. It was really fierce. But now, a young man seemed to be more abnormal than this broken blade. He fought with it with the cultivation of Spirit Realm. That incredible scene was just like a myth. Boom, the fierce battle continued under the darkness. The broken blade, regarded as a fierce weapon by everyone, fought with Lin Sun, changing the color of the sky and the earth. Lin Sun didn't feel good. His body seemed to be about to collapse and shatter. His injuries were getting worse and worse, and he was under indescribable fatal pressure. If it weren't for the magic of Ice Drake steps and the rising momentum in the battle, he would have been killed on the spot. The only thing that excited Lin Sun was that the spiritual vein on the 4 acupoints of his heart vessel was rapidly condensing. It was only a small section away from complete transformation. I must condense the origin spirit meridian before my body explodes. Otherwise, not only will my efforts be in vain, I might even lose my life to this blade. In the battle, Lin Sun's black eyes were full of firmness and ruthlessness. He was also crazy. This battle was not only a rare opportunity, but also a terrible fatal crisis. It depended on whether he could resolve it in the end. Chapter 459. The broken blade whistled and chopped the star-like glow, crushing the void and surging in all directions. Lin Sun's figure was bleeding, but he kept fighting with it with great momentum. This made all the practitioners in the field gasp and feel cold all over. It was hard to imagine how a spirit realm could have such a terrible fighting capacity. The movement here was so big that it even alarmed the practitioners in the distance to come here. When they witnessed all this, they were also shocked. There were many ancient treasures left in the precious blood plateau, but there was no doubt that the power of this broken blade was shocking and extraordinary. The young man was even more abnormal. He was like a devil that couldn't be killed. Although his body was broken, his power was gradually rising in the battle. If the fierce battle between a man and a treasure was spread to the outside world, it was bound to cause a great disturbance and shock countless practitioners. Bang! Suddenly, there was an explosion in the sky like thunder on the ground. The purple soul saber, which was at the level of earth-rank spiritual treasure, was smashed by the broken blade and turned into a rain of light. Lin Sun was shaken and staggered back. It seemed that he couldn't hold on any longer. His handsome face became pale and transparent. However, the broken blade didn't seem to feel well either. It was buzzing and trembling in the void as if it was in pain, which made many practitioners feel shocked again. Kill! With a clang, Lin Sun took out a silver spiritual sword, which was as agile as a spirit snake. This was the trophy obtained from Qian Huai. It was a top-grade earth-rank spiritual weapon, which could be regarded as a fine treasure. Boom! The broken blade flew across the sky, steaming and releasing infinite starlight, which was so horrible that it seemed to erase the void. Everyone was stupefied. Was this the power an ancient treasure could possess? It was too inferior and unparalleled. Just a moment later, the silver spiritual sword in Lin Sun's hand burst into powder with a bang. Losing 2 treasures in a row, other practitioners might have already known that they were no match for Lin Sun and chose an opportunity to escape. But Lin Sun had reached the critical moment of condensing the spiritual vein. How could he miss this opportunity? He roared and went to fight with his bare hands. The void rumbled and the wind and clouds surged. All the people present were shocked by Lin Sun's strong and arrogant posture. A young man at the Sea of Souls realm seemed to know no fear, not running away from life and death. He charged forward bravely, battling with that broken blade with his peerless power. That scene was too shocking and unimaginable. Soon, Lin Sun's heart was burning, boiling and about to explode, especially the heart vein in his chest, which was boiling hot as if it was burning. A section of crystal clear and holy spiritual vein had almost condensed into a real thing, filled with vast holy brilliance, as if a great abyss had been opened, and all that was contained in it was the sacred power to devour the sky. But along with it, Lin Sun's body was covered with wounds and blood. It was shocking that he was about to break up. A hard-to-find opportunity and a deadly danger coexisted at this moment. At this moment, Lin Sun simply seemed as if he was on fire. Since the beginning of the battle, his might had been constantly rising, and at this moment, his strength had already reached a shocking level. The broken blade buzzed and was about to be suppressed by Lin Sun's 9 strikes for shaking heaven. Many people were dumbfounded. The brutal young man's body was seriously injured and almost collapsed, but his fighting capacity was getting stronger and stronger, and he was about to suppress the broken blade. This was crazy. Can this boy really subdue this blade? Some strong practitioners of Tao Insight Realm, who had suppressed their cultivation to the level of Sea Spirit Realm, couldn't control themselves at this moment, and their expressions changed. Buzz. Suddenly, the broken blade no longer buzzed and fell into silence. All the starlight was converged, and the real black body was revealed. But at the same time, there was an extremely horrible breath diffusing from its surface, and it vaguely turned into a vague figure. That's, someone shouted with a pale face and extreme panic in his heart. It's the will left by a great figure in ancient times. Now it's activated, and it's going to slaughter that young man. Some experienced people were shocked and realized why the broken blade was so powerful. It turned out that there was still a residual power of will in the broken blade. It could be imagined how terrifying that great figure was to be able to wake up today after thousands of years of erosion. This young man is finished. Everyone was frightened and avoided to the distance, realizing that the broken blade was going to launch a powerful blow to kill Lin Sun. However, at the same time, Lin Sun didn't retreat, but rushed forward. With a bang, he rushed over and grabbed the broken blade. Boom! The void was boiling, and a horrible breath burst out. It was like a sun exploding. The bright light was like a volcanic eruption, submerging the void. Within a radius of dozens of miles, the mountains collapsed, the rocks were crushed, and the earth was shattered. Countless cracks spread out. The sky collapsed. The earth cracked. The explosion was so shocking and deafening that many practitioners' minds were buzzing, and they felt like vomiting. Their souls were about to leave their bodies. The bright light was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes and see what was happening there. Was the brutal young man dead or alive? A thought came to the minds of many practitioners. After a while, the blazing light disappeared, and a figure appeared, which shocked all the people present. He didn't die. Lin Sun didn't die, but his figure could only be described as beyond recognition. The skin all over his body was broken, and the white bones could be seen. Except for a pair of bright black eyes, there was no complete part of him. He was coughing up blood, and his rapid breathing was like the hoarse sound of a beast. His palms were trembling because he was still struggling to hold a broken black blade in his palm. Really subdued, all the practitioners present were stunned and shocked. There were also many young talents and attendants of Tao Insight realm of the old sections. The brutal young man was obviously an arrow at the end of its flight. If they took this opportunity, could they seize the broken blade? Many people had this idea. The fierce power of the broken blade had been suppressed, and the brutal young man was obviously at the end of his life. This was undoubtedly a perfect opportunity to kill and seize the treasure. Thinking of the amazing power released by the broken blade just now, many people's eyes became greedy and blazing. Kill. Suddenly, a golden rainbow rose through the sky. A young man holding a golden spear flashed across the sky and rushed to Lin Sun. Ran-in, the descendant of Juxing Pavilion. He was a peerless figure with a terrible talent. He was famous in the outside world and dazzling. Now his sudden attack immediately caused a shock. Hurry up! This broken blade has the power against the heaven. It must not fall into the hands of others. All of a sudden, there was a loud shout in the field. Immediately, more than a dozen figures rushed out from different directions, including the descendants of the old sects and the practitioners of Tao Insight realm. They all rushed to Lin Sun at the same time. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Those practitioners who were still in shock also reacted at this time. Knowing that this was a perfect opportunity to seize the treasure, they all showed a fierce look and started to take action. Kill! 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 In this world, countless practitioners had already been distributed. At this moment, in order to seize the treasure, they attacked like a tide. The scene was terrifying. Lin Sun's black eyes were indifferent and cold. Looking carefully, in the depth of his pupils, there was an unfathomable abyss, which seemed to be able to swallow everything at any time. In his body, a piece of white and holy spiritual vein glowed, producing a magical sound of Zen chanting, like the mystery of the Great Way. Yes, no one knew that after the amazing battle with the broken blade just now, Lin Sun had condensed a brand new spiritual vein in one fell swoop. My friend, hand over the broken blade, and I can guarantee that you can leave safely. Ran-in, dressed in a golden robe and holding a golden spear, shouted loudly. His expression was full of arrogance and coldness. Having said that, he didn't intend to give Lin Sun a chance at all. He directly swept the golden spear and turned it into a monstrous golden glow, rushing to Lin Sun. The power was so terrible that it could sweep the world. Obviously, he had used his killing move to seize the treasure and kill Lin Sun in one blow, so as not to delay the opportunity. You don't deserve it. In the indifferent voice, the broken blade in Lin Sun's hand shone and chopped at will. Boom! The silver light all over the sky was vast and boundless like the Milky Way. With a clang, the golden spear was directly shaken and almost broken. Caught off guard, Ran-in had no time to dodge. Swept by the silver light of the Milky Way, his body suddenly felt like being pushed by a mountain. His bones were broken, and blood flowed from his 7 orifices. He screamed in horror. He didn't expect that Lin Sun, who was obviously an arrow at the end of its flight, could still have such a terrible power. But he was also a young talent, so he reacted very quickly. Although he was seriously injured, he subconsciously chose to dodge and retreat far away. Puff! But Lin Sun didn't give him a chance at all. A silver saber light emerged and cut his body into 2 halves. Blood splashed everywhere and he died on the spot. Everyone was shocked. How could this happen? Ran-in was a talent, the successor of the Gathering Stars Pavilion, and he was a top figure in the Sea Spirit realm. But at this time, he was directly killed on the spot without even one move. Kill! Let's go together. He is already at the end of his road, and his fierce power is doomed to be difficult to maintain. Yes, that's not his power. It's the power of the broken blade. As long as we kill him, this treasure will be ours. More than 10 practitioners rushed over, among which there were strong practitioners of Tao Insight realm. They besieged Lin Sun. At this time, Lin Sun would die sooner or later. If he didn't seize the opportunity to seize the treasure, he was doomed to regret for the rest of his life. Killing the enemy with one blow not only failed to deter them, but also made those practitioners more crazy, so Lin Sun didn't hesitate anymore. He jumped out, and the 2-foot-long black broken blade in his hand was steaming with dreamy silver starlight. This precious name was still struggling and didn't obey Lin Sun. However, it was controlled by Lin Sun, so it couldn't do anything about it. Boom! Someone took out a treasure. A golden umbrella flew up and kept rotating, shooting out golden light that swept across Lin Sun. This thing could suppress people's souls. Lin Sun raised his hand and waved the broken blade casually. Amazing starlight gushed out and cut the golden umbrella into 2 halves. As for the cultivator holding the treasure, his head was chopped off. Just like Ran Yin, he didn't even have time to struggle before he died on the spot. Lin Sun didn't even look at it. His figure flashed, and he used ice dragon steps to kill. The enemies had surrounded him, so he wouldn't let himself fall into a passive siege. Chapter 460. Kill. When Lin Sun attacked, more than a dozen practitioners who were close to him had already taken action. They took out their treasures and performed their secret methods, like rainbows piercing through the sky. The void was buzzing and crisscrossing, covering the sky and covering the earth. There was no way to dodge. It was too dense. Break! Lin Sun shouted. The broken blade swept across a galaxy, and the silver light was bright, crushing all directions. The divine light shook and blocked all the incoming attacks. Then there was a sound of collision. The secret methods were shattered into pieces, and the treasures were bleak and bleak. In the end, there was a loud bang. Several practitioners screamed and were directly killed on the spot. Blood dyed the void red. This scene was terrible. More than a dozen practitioners, including those in Tao Insight Realm, attacked together. The attack they released was so monstrous that it could overturn rivers and seas and destroy everything. But now, all the attacks were crushed by Lin Sun's saber, and several practitioners were killed on the spot. The crowd's faces changed. This ferocious young man was too powerful. His body was on the verge of collapse, and he couldn't fully control the broken blade, but he could still exert great power, which was too abnormal. Boom! Lin Sun rushed forward. The ice dragon rose into the air, and its figure was like a phantom. The broken blade in its hand was whistling and shining with silver starlight. It was like a demon sweeping through the world. Blood burst out. Some practitioners couldn't dodge in time and were killed on the spot. Lin Sun broke through the encirclement and rushed to the distance. Don't let him escape. Some practitioners roared in anger and rushed to Lin Sun. This ferocious young man's fighting power was amazing. Now he was seriously injured. If they couldn't kill him, who could subdue him in the future after he escaped? Moreover, if they missed this opportunity, they would be missing out on that heaven-defying ominous blade. This was something that no one could accept. With a bang, a huge yellow mountain flew over and pressed down on Lin Sun. It was transformed by a seal, full of spirituality. The dense spiritual tattoos on it flickered, and ancient trees, rocks, waterfalls and other strange phenomena appeared on the mountain. Such a treasure seal smashed down like a mountain, blocking Lin Sun's way and killing him in one fell swoop. Lin Sun's body was like a great abyss, and his black eyes were cold. With a long roar, he chopped out the broken saber and hit the mountain. The rocks collapsed, the ancient trees were smashed, and the waterfall was cut off. Everything was blown up. The silver radiance blade was incomparably sharp. With a sweep, even the precious imprint had a crack cut open, almost cleaving it in half. In the distance, a youth cried out miserably. The precious imprint was a spiritual treasure in his hands, and now that it was heavily injured, he suffered a backlash as well. He coughed out blood from his lips. Many practitioners in the distance were indescribably shaken. He was too powerful. That savage youth's battle prowess was originally unparalleled, and now he was holding a heaven-defying ominous blade. If he wanted to break free, who could stop him? Many Xiozha had been madly charging over, but when they saw this scene, they were shocked and slowed down. They watched coldly, waiting for an opportunity to act. "Junior, don't you dare act violently." An old man rushed over with a solemn and dignified look. He took out a horsetail whisk and gently swept it in the void. The horsetail whisk turned into a monstrous cloud of fire and rushed to Lin Sun. This was a strong practitioner of Tao Insight Realm. Although his cultivation was suppressed to the level of Sea Spirit Realm, his divine power was still there. He could control the power of the Great Way, and his fighting capacity was beyond the realm of Sea Spirit Realm. The horsetail whisk he took out was obviously a rare treasure. It released a cloud of fire, surging and surging across the void like a sea of fire. It was extremely terrible. Venerable Crane of Misty Mountain! Finally, a big shot is going to kill this young man. There was an exclamation and excitement in the field. Old thing, how dare you teach me a lesson? Lin Sun's black eyes were cold. He hated these guys who took advantage of the situation. Holding the broken saber, he strode forward. The rolling silver divine light crushed the cloud of fire in the sky and broke it into pieces in an instant. The old man snorted coldly. He waved the horsetail whisk and cast a secret method, rolling up a flame storm. His power was like the god of fire. Boom! A moment later, there was an earth-shattering collision. The old man used the horsetail whisk in his hand to block the powerful slash of the broken saber, but his whole body was sent flying. As if he was electrocuted, his whole body trembled and his expression changed. Obviously, he had suffered a great loss. Many people gasped and their hands and feet were cold. Venerable Crane was one of the best in Tao Insight Realm. He was a disciple of Misty Mountain, an ancient sect. Although his realm was suppressed, his strength was stronger than even some peerless geniuses. But now, in a head-on collision, Venerable Crane was forced to retreat by the brutal young man. Die, young man! Suddenly, another Tao Insight Realm cultivator came. It was a middle-aged man with a bone sword. He slashed out with his sword, intending to kill Lin Sun by surprise. Humph! Lin Sun snorted coldly. His figure flickered and suddenly disappeared. He ignored the middle-aged man and continued to attack Venerable Crane. Boom! The silver starlight flowed like falling stars. It was a terrifying scene. Venerable Crane was constantly being attacked and was about to collapse. At the same time, the middle-aged man with the bone sword kept launching sneak attacks. His actions were treacherous and ruthless, and he seemed very insidious. Because of this, Lin Sun had to be distracted, which prevented Venerable Crane from being killed immediately. Seeing that the two Tao Insight Realm cultivators could barely hold Lin Sun back, and could not suppress his power, the practitioners in the field were shocked again. The brutal young man was seriously injured, but he could still hold on until now. This was too shocking. Boom! There was another earth-shattering collision. The broken blade swept across and cut the horsetail whisk in Venerable Crane's hand in half. The silver starlight burst out and shattered Venerable Crane's right arm. Seeing that Lin Sun was about to take advantage of the situation to kill Venerable Crane, the middle-aged man with the bone sword launched another sneak attack. Kill! Lin Sun's eyes emitted cold lightning. His hair fluttered in anger, and he directly gave up on Venerable Crane. The broken blade circled around and collided with the bone sword. The world shook and rays of light flowed. The middle-aged man's bone sword was slashed away, and he spat out blood as if he was struck by lightning. Die! Lin Sun shouted, urging the broken blade to press forward, accompanied by the starlight. Boom! The middle-aged man's face suddenly changed, and he let out a roar. An ancient cauldron appeared in front of him, releasing clear light and blocked the blow. But who would have thought that Lin Sun suddenly swung his leg, and with a bang, he kicked the middle-aged man in the face. With a muffled groan, the middle-aged man's cheekbone was broken, his mouth and nose collapsed, and his teeth mixed with blood burst out. He was almost kicked in the head. However, he was a strong man of Tao Insight realm. Even though he was in danger, he finally launched his divine power and avoided with difficulty. This was absolutely a shame. He was a great practitioner of Tao Insight realm, but his head was trampled by a seriously injured and dying young man, which made him angry. All this happened in a flash, and the two sides separated. The practitioners in the distance felt cold all over. Such a pincer attack could not stop Lin Sun, but they were defeated by him. This was too shocking. The starlight was blazing, and Lin Sun continued to kill, unwilling to let go of the middle-aged man with the bone sword. The latter coughed up blood and kept dodging. "Young man, don't push me too far." The middle-aged man roared, and his face was livid. He was extremely aggrieved. He was a man of Tao Insight realm, but in this precious blood plane, he was afraid of suffering the backlash of the forbidden power, so he had to suppress his cultivation. But he had never thought that under such circumstances, he would be defeated by a young man of Sea Spirit realm. How could he bear this? If you have the guts, use your real strength or wait to die. Lin Sun was very strong. Although there were enemies with bad intentions in all directions, he was not afraid. Boom! As he spoke, his broken blade swept through the air, and with one blow, the middle-aged man was shaken away again. His whole body was covered with blood, and he looked miserable. "Do you think I don't dare?" The middle-aged man went completely crazy, completely disregarding all scruples. He recovered the power of Tao Insight realm, and like a furious beast, he took the initiative to fight Lin Sun fiercely. His power was terrible, and the power of Tao Insight realm was extraordinary, which shocked everyone present. But what was even more horrifying was that Lin Sun was not suppressed at all. With the broken blade in his hand, he was equally matched with the middle-aged man. Moreover, it seemed that he would continue to suppress the middle-aged man. God, this ferocious young man is too abnormal. Many practitioners trembled all over. Lin Sun's fierce and disdainful posture deeply shocked their souls. "Venerable Crane, what are you hesitating for? Let's kill this bastard together!" The middle-aged man roared. Suddenly, in the distance, Venerable Crane, who had fled after being killed by Lin Sun, returned again, exerted his power, and attacked Lin Sun together with the middle-aged man. Clang! But at this moment, on Lin Sun's broken blade, suddenly the vision of the eternal night and the falling stars suddenly appeared. The momentum suddenly reached the extreme, drowning the middle-aged man and Venerable Crane together. Reaching for the stars. This time was different from before. No one knew whether it was because Lin Sun had condensed the spiritual vein, or because the broken blade was too fierce. As soon as this move was displayed, the terrible vision changed the color of the world, as if it was covered by the eternal night. "Ah!" the middle-aged man screamed. His bone sword burst into pieces, and his figure was swept by the blazing blade, cut into two halves from the waist. On the other side, Venerable Crane exclaimed, turned around, and wanted to escape. It was too terrible. The middle-aged man had exerted the power of Tao Insight realm, but he was killed on the spot. Under such circumstances, how could Venerable Crane dare to stay? "Where are you going?" Lin Sun roared and displayed ice dragon steps, much faster than his opponent. The broken blade, like a flowing light, broke through the void. Whoosh! Venerable Crane had begun to exert the cultivation of Tao Insight realm, but he failed to block this blow. His head was chopped off, and blood dyed the sky red. In a twinkling of an eye, two well-known strongmen of Tao Insight realm were killed on the spot. There was a dead silence in the field. Everyone was dumbfounded and looked at Lin Sun as if they had seen a living ghost. Before, Lin Sun subdued the broken blade with a nature-defying posture, which shocked them. But at that time, Lin Sun was also seriously injured, and his body was broken and on the verge of collapse. Under such circumstances, everyone present thought that this was a good opportunity to kill people and seize their treasures. But no one expected that Lin Sun was so powerful, arrogant, and terrible that he killed more than a dozen practitioners in anger and killed a peerless genius like Ran Yin in a flash. At this moment, he killed 2 Tao Insight Realm cultivators with his godly prowess. Who on earth was he? Why was he so nature-defying? The whole field was in a dead silence, and everyone was shocked. P.S. Today, I read a comment from a reader saying that my writing is getting worse. To be honest, it's quite frustrating. The most depressing thing is that I think these chapters are very popular recently, and I'm very happy with them. I don't know what's wrong with them. Chapter 461. The young man's body was broken, and his clothes were ragged and stained with blood. But at this time, he stood proudly in the void with the broken starlight blade in his hand. He was like a devil, shocking the whole audience. No one dared to test him again. Even a practitioner of Tao Insight Realm was killed. Who else could be the opponent of this ferocious young man? Who else wants to fight for this blade? Lin Sun's indifferent voice resounded through the whole audience, but no one dared to respond for a long time. Even those who were swept by Lin Sun's eyes changed their faces slightly and became stiff, not daring to look into his eyes. This was power. First, Lin Sun subdued the broken blade, then killed a group of heroes, and killed a practitioner of Tao Insight Realm. His cruel and bloody means had frightened the whole audience. Whoosh! Withdrawing his gaze, Lin Sun didn't hesitate anymore. He used ice dragon steps and rushed to the void in the distance like a rainbow. Seeing this, many practitioners were very unwilling and eager to make a move, but they finally held back. They knew they couldn't stop Lin Sun at all. This ferocious young man was so strong that he deterred everyone. It was not until Lin Sun's figure completely disappeared that the practitioners in the field recovered from the shock. Looking at the blood and corpses on the battlefield, and the destroyed mountains, rivers and earth, they couldn't help but discuss. Why is that young man so horrible? He is invincible in Sea Spirit Realm, and he can kill a practitioner of Tao Insight Realm. It's incredible! Someone sighed with emotion. He must be the successor of an ancient, secluded, immortal sect. Otherwise, how could I not have heard of his name before? Exactly. I've heard as well that there are some peerless figures that can be said to be extraordinary and formidable in some ancient forbidden grounds and cultivation grounds that are hidden from the world, and they're capable of looking down upon all opponents just like that ferocious young man. Tell me, if this savage youth is compared to the heavenly cloud mountains Ling Xinuo, the Starfall Dao sects Tai Qianhan, the spirit origin sword sects Yun Ku, the blood god sects Yuan Zhan, the myriad transformation spiritual lands Lian Die. I'm not sure. The reason why this ferocious young man was able to kill a practitioner of Tao Insight Realm just now is that there is a taboo power in Precious Blood Field, which restricts them from exerting their power. Secondly, it's because the broken blade in the young man's hand is too powerful. If it was Ling Xinuo or Tai Qianhan, they would be able to accomplish this as well. I'm really looking forward to the battle between that savage youth and those geniuses. I want to see who is more dazzling. The sounds of discussion rose everywhere. It was also on this day that the news regarding the savage youth spread throughout the various regions of the treasured blood plains, causing a great uproar and shock. They had never imagined that a previously unknown youth would actually be so ferocious. Even now, no one knew where he came from or what his name was. A ruined mountain appeared. Not a single blade of grass grew here, the rocks blood-red in color. Baleful energy pervaded the air, covering heaven and earth. This was clearly a place of great danger. Normal cultivators would most likely stay far away when they saw this. Whoosh! Before long, Lin Sun appeared here. Unlike his matchless divine might from before, his face was pale and translucent, and the space between his brows faintly revealed a strand of anxiety and helplessness. The previous battle had intimidated everyone present, but no one knew that he was indeed an arrow at the end of its flight and would soon be unable to hold on. The reason was the spiritual vein of the origin. Although the battle with the broken blade helped Lin Sun finally condense the spiritual vein of the origin, an unexpected change happened. The spiritual vein of the origin, which had just been formed, seemed to be extremely eager for strength and stability, so it began to devour the spiritual energy in his body. This was originally what Lin Sun was very happy to see. Originally, he was about to be unable to control the violent and turbulent spiritual energy in his body. If it could be resolved by the spiritual vein of the origin, it would naturally be excellent. But later, Lin Sun found that the spiritual vein of the origin was like a bottomless pit, constantly devouring and refining the spiritual energy in his body. If this situation continued, Lin Sun's cultivation would be squeezed dry. Because of this, Lin Sun left in a hurry in the battle just now, and didn't even have the mood to plunder the spoils. Fortunately, those practitioners were deterred by his ferocious power. If they dared to hold on for a while, they might be able to take advantage of Lin Sun's weakness. I have to have a good meditation. Without thinking, Lin Sun's figure flashed into the depths of the mountain full of ruins and evil mist. From the appearance of the spiritual vein of the origin, to the beginning of the battle with Qian Huai, to entering the grassland of precious blood, it had been more than 10 days. Lin Sun had been fighting all the time without a rest. He wanted to solve the violent and explosive power in his body. Now, the spiritual vein of the origin had been condensed successfully, which resolved this crisis, but it made him fall into another crisis. That was, the cultivation in his body was being devoured crazily by the spiritual vein of the origin. If this went on, Lin Sun himself might not be able to hold on, let alone fight. He would be completely weak and his cultivation would collapse. From one extreme to the other, the crisis all came from the spiritual vein of the origin, which made Lin Sun speechless. However, on the other hand, it was also because of the birth of the spiritual vein of the origin that Lin Sun's fighting capacity soared. The more he was frustrated, the stronger he became, and the more he fought, the more his strength changed. That was why he could fight against Qian Huai, Taoist Xiong, Chu Lintian and other Tao Insight Realm cultivators, and subdue the fierce blade in one fell swoop, which deterred many practitioners. Lin Sun had a hunch that if he could take this opportunity to completely stabilize the spiritual vein of the origin and resolve this crisis, his strength could reach an unprecedented height. The deep mountain full of evil mist was terribly silent, as if there were no living creatures. Even the wind was still, and the ground was permeated with strange dark red blood stains. Although Lin Sun urgently needed to find a safe place to meditate, he dared not to be careless after witnessing this scene. Before long, a huge skeleton of a demon beast, which was more than 30 meters long, appeared in front of him. Its head was broken, leaving only a mutilated corpse. The skeleton was pale gold, surrounded by evil spirits, and filled with the breath of time. Obviously, it had survived from ancient times. Looking from a distance, there was a faint roar coming from the skeleton, which shocked the soul, made Lin Sun's hair stand on end, and made him feel a suffocating danger. This skeleton must have been a monstrous demon beast before its death. After the erosion of time, it still retained a terrible evil spirit. Lin Sun did not dare to approach it. He kept away from it and continued to move forward. Not long after, a river of blood was faintly visible within the baleful mist, and it flowed silently without the slightest ripple, causing it to be extremely bizarre. What shocked Lin Sun most was that the blood flowing in the river was like nectar, crystal clear and lustrous, as if it was made of ancient blood. In the blood river, there were ancient corpses floating and broken ancient treasures looming. All of them flowed quietly with the river, drifting to the depths of the mountain. Lin Sun felt an indescribable horror, as if there was a terrible forbidden power in the blood river, which had once buried deities and caused terrible things to happen in the world. What on earth was this river? Lin Sun glanced at it inadvertently and saw an ancient corpse. It was a woman in a rainbow-colored dress, with a cyan bone sword inserted obliquely in her neck. The bone sword was shining with spiritual light, as illusory as a dream. With just a glance, Lin soon felt stiff all over, his heart pounding, and an unspeakable chill gushed out of him. He didn't dare to look at it again. He kept away from the blood river and walked deeper into the evil mist. But compared with before, he became more cautious. Before long, Lin soon saw another grave. It was very ordinary, just a pile of yellow soil, with a broken stone tablet standing on it. The stone tablet was mottled, covered with moss, and had no inscription. But standing in the distance of this lonely grave, Lin soon felt terrified. He had goosebumps all over his body, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. It seemed that in the inconspicuous grave, a great figure was buried, sleeping, and inviolable. What on earth was this place? Without hesitation, Lin soon avoided it again. His heart was quite disturbed. In this ruined mountain, not even a blade of grass grew, and it was deathly silent. But there were the bones of the demon beast with unpredictable evil spirit, the blood river with floating ancient corpses, and the yellow soil grave that no one dared to step into. If it weren't for Lin soon's firm will, he would have turned around and left this damn place. It was so strange and dangerous that it made people feel like entering purgatory. Finally, Lin soon stopped in front of a cave formed by a rock crack. Obviously, a terrible battle had happened here. There were bloodstains on the ground, which hadn't faded for thousands of years. Whoosh! Lin soon took a deep breath, sat cross-legged in the cave, and began to meditate quietly. In the depths of this ruined mountain, it seemed extremely dangerous and strange, but it was deathly silent. No one would have thought that Lin soon would meditate here. Boom! In his chest, the original spiritual vein was white and shining, releasing holy breath. It swallowed the surging spiritual energy in the ocean of chi like rivers flowing into the sea. It could be seen that the original spiritual vein became more solid and brilliant, and the holy breath was dense, which looked extremely mysterious. In the past many years, Lin soon had been thinking about what the original spiritual vein that had been dug away from him since he was a child looked like. Now it was reborn, lying in his heart vein, flowing with holy breath. It was also the first time that Lin soon saw its true appearance. It was very mysterious. Carefully feeling it, Lin soon could clearly feel that with the original spiritual vein, he seemed to have a mysterious treasure house with supreme power in his body. But soon, Lin soon couldn't care about this. He became nervous because the surging spiritual energy in his body was on the verge of drying up. But the original spiritual vein didn't stop swallowing. Obviously, it had just been condensed and was eager for power to stabilize and replenish. Lin soon gritted his teeth, took out the spiritual medicine in the storage ring, opened his mouth, and swallowed it to replenish the almost dry ocean of chi. But in next to no time, the copious medicinal strength was completely absorbed. Lin soon was shocked and had to take out more spiritual medicine to refine. In this way, whenever the spiritual energy was about to run out, Lin soon swallowed and refined elixirs. This process lasted for several hours. But even so, the original spiritual vein was still swallowing. Until the spiritual medicine and elixirs stored by Lin soon were exhausted, he couldn't stop all this, which made him dumbfounded. The original spiritual vein was too good at eating, wasn't it? Chapter 462. The spiritual vein was indeed extraordinary. It had just been formed, but it had swallowed all the spiritual energy and elixirs in Lin soon's body. Moreover, it still couldn't satisfy it. In the end, Lin soon gritted his teeth, took out a clear and glistening monster pill, and swallowed it. This was the monster pill of a green-spotted leopard, and it contained a huge amount of essence. If it was used as medicine, it could be used to refine a furnace of top-grade earth-rank elixirs. But if it was swallowed directly, its efficacy would be greatly reduced. But Lin soon had no time to care about this now. Boom! A terrifying scorching force suddenly spread in Lin soon's body like lava. This time was different from before. Before Lin Sun could refine it, the spiritual vein seemed to have transformed into a great abyss, and it produced a terrifying devouring force that swallowed all the power of the green-spotted leopard's monster pill. In a trance, Lin Sun had an illusion that the spiritual vein seemed to be anxious to be stabilized, just like him. "Treasure, treasure, I'd like to see how many monster pills you can swallow." Lin Sun took out another monster pill, opened his mouth, and swallowed it. The monster pill was extremely valuable. In Xiao Empire, a monster pill like the one of the green-spotted leopard could be sold at a sky-high price. After killing Qian Huai, Lin Sun led the captive Ren Miao Miao to fight for 10 days without stopping. They killed more than a dozen sea spirit realm demonic beasts along the way and obtained more than a dozen monster pills. Originally, he intended to use them for cultivation in the future, but now he could only reluctantly part with them and feed these valuable monster pills to the spiritual vein. 1, 2, 3. Lin Sun kept swallowing monster pills. He was like a medium, and there was no need for him to refine them. The power of those monster pills was swallowed by the spiritual vein. During this entire process, the quintessence spirit vein glowed brilliantly like a blazing abyss, and it emanated a pure and holy aura while faintly emanating waves of chanting that sounded like the sound of Zen. The holy aura was so strong that it seemed substantial. It gurgled above the 4 acupoints of his heart, and the power it emitted dyed every inch of his heart into a pure color like glass. Bang! 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 The rhythmic beating of his heart was like a drum, steady, heavy, copious, and powerful. Every time it beat, it would emit a pure and holy aura that spread throughout his blood and spread to his meridians, apertures, muscles, bones, and skin. For a moment, every inch of Lin Sun's pores seemed to be glowing, glittering and translucent like colored glass, filled with pure glow, revealing an ethereal and holy atmosphere. Lin Sun could keenly perceive that his whole body, inside and outside, was infiltrated and sublimated by the holy breath, undergoing a transformation. When only 2 monster dawn remained in Lin's body, the spiritual vein finally stopped devouring, and it seemed to be satisfied. It lay across his heart meridian like a sun, emitting blazing and holy radiance. Rumble, the holy breath spread from the heart and circulated to the limbs and bones. It actually integrated with Lin Sun's essence, qi and spirit, producing a mysterious infiltration force. Lin Sun breathed a sigh of relief. The crisis had been resolved, and the pressure in his heart was completely relieved. He entered a calm and ethereal state. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun held the oblivion ring in his hand, ran his cultivation method, and began to meditate. Hum in his mind, a sound as clear as the morning bell and evening drum resounded, as if someone was reciting scriptures, echoing in his sea of consciousness. This was the secret method of oblivion Taoism passed down by the ancestor of Lin family. Only the lineal descendants of Lin family could understand the supreme mystery of it with the help of the oblivion ring. At the same time, the ancient inheritance of nature insight and spirit devour scripture in the heaven accessing place was also running in Lin Sun's body. On the 4 acupoints of the heart meridian, the spiritual vein was like a blazing sun, emitting a substantial holy air, gurgling and flowing, soaking Lin Sun's whole body like a nectar. At this moment, Lin Sun's whole body was shining. His handsome face was as calm as an ancient well, and his eyebrows were bright and clean, faintly emitting holy and ethereal spirit. In the air, there seemed to be wisps of Taoist sound, ethereal and distant like the sounds of nature. This was a kind of eruption after suffering. With the support of the oblivion Taoism scripture, the nature insight and spirit devour scripture, and the spiritual vein, Lin Sun's body, cultivation, and spirit all showed a kind of amazing transformation. 3 days later, crack, crack on Lin Sun's body, the dense scars left in the battle formed into scabs, and then fell off like cracks, revealing a layer of crystal-clear jade-like skin, and the pores exuded holy and clear clouds. 7 days later. His body was humming with energy. His bones were bright, his fascia was like jade, and his blood was clear and pure, and shrouded with holy air. His physical strength had completed a nirvana-like transformation. It was comparable to a spiritual weapon, and it was pure and without any impurities. 10 days later. In his sea of consciousness, the soul stars lit up and suddenly shone brightly like a burning galaxy, densely covering the void of corpses and illuminating the spirit. Hundreds of thousands of soul stars rotated, and the soul-tracing method was formed. The first of the 3 realms of meditating magic, star circulation realm. In his sea of consciousness, tens of thousands of stars were shining brightly, circulating in the sky along a mysterious track, and the rolling light fell, infiltrating the spirit inside and outside. 15 days later. Boom! There was a roar in Lin Sun's body, like thunder surging, as if mountains were colliding in it, rumbling and surging with a terrible aura. His spiritual sea had completely changed. The vast spiritual sea had turned into a big abyss at this time. The big abyss rotated, rushing out a terrible spiritual storm, rumbling and rotating. In the spiritual storm, the sun and the moon rose and fell, the stars twinkled, the lightning intertwined, and the thunder surged, showing a magnificent and terrible scene. A big abyss opened in the ocean of Qi, rushing out a spiritual storm, and triggering a magnificent vision in the sky, which seemed so incredible. If other practitioners saw it, they would be stunned and couldn't believe it. This was indeed a unique phenomenon, which meant that Lin Sun's talent of devouring abyss reappeared, and it blended with his own cultivation, making him different from others. The 20th day. Lin Sun woke up from meditation, and his black eyes were cold. The image of the big abyss, floating and sinking, shot out brilliant light like a divine rainbow, tearing and illuminating the darkness of the cave. Complete sea of spirit. Feeling the changes in his body, Lin Sun's heart was filled with joy. Not only his cultivation had transformed to the complete sea of spirit realm, but also his body and soul had undergone a new transformation, just like nirvana sublimation. Lin Sun took out a spiritual sword, which was one of the trophies he had plundered. It was an earth-rank spiritual weapon. Crack! When Lin Sun exerted his strength with his palm, the spiritual sword was crushed in a twinkling, and a rain of light scattered. If this was seen by practitioners in the same realm, they would be bound to be shocked. He could easily crush an earth-rank spiritual weapon with his bare hands, which could be regarded as the most outstanding power in the sea of spirit realm. Lin Sun got up, and the haze in his heart was swept away. This time entering the ancient spirit world, he not only condensed the spiritual vein, but also made himself undergo a comprehensive transformation like nirvana, which undoubtedly made Lin Sun excited. At this moment, even if he left the ancient spirit world, he would have no regrets. The 4th level of the Great Path of Green Cloud is really mysterious. It let me suffer hardships here, go through battles without dying, and finally transform. Maybe this is my chance. Lin Sun stood there with his black hair hanging down to his shoulders, and a long-lost warm and brilliant smile appeared on his handsome face. From the day he killed Qian Huai to the present, Lin Sun had never smiled once in the battle. He was cold and bloody, and was regarded as a devil by other practitioners. Now all the internal and external crises had been resolved, and he seemed to be reborn after a disaster. His mind was calm, and his temperament, which had been covered by killing and crises, was restored as before. Inexplicably, Lin Sun thought of the killings a few days ago, and couldn't help but click his tongue. Fortunately, this was not Xiao Empire, or he would be suppressed by many forces when he went out after killing so many descendants of ancient sects and Tao Insight Realm. Without thinking much, Lin Sun walked out of the cave. In an instant, the joy in his heart disappeared and was replaced by vigilance. In this strange and silent deep mountain, the evil spirit was getting stronger and stronger. Just breathing made people upset and eroded their state of mind. Visible to the naked eye, the dark red blood mist was covering the mountain, which was shocking to see. Lin soon thought of the ferocious ancient monster skeleton, the silent flowing blood river, and the horrible ancient corpse floating in the blood river. Immediately, he thought of the lonely grave and the broken tablet, and his heart inexplicably palpitated. It was getting more and more dangerous here. After nirvana transformation, Lin Sun's soul became extremely sensitive. He felt that there was a suffocating power in this fierce mountain, which seemed to be about to wake up from silence. I have to get out of here as soon as possible. Lin Sun took a deep breath, and his whole body was filled with light cyan glow, resisting and dissolving the bloody evil spirit in the air. Then he flashed back to the original road. Before long, he was close to the lonely grave. Lin Sun intended to bypass it, for the spirit here was so terrifying that Lin Sun didn't dare to cross it. Whoosh! But at this moment, a slim and slender figure appeared. Her skin was whiter than snow, and her appearance was charming. Her red lips had a kind of glamorous charm. It was Liandye, the successor of the spiritual land of innumerable transformations. Why was it her again? Lin Sun was surprised. This was too coincidental. Then he saw that Liandye seemed to be being chased. Her fiery red dress was stained with blood, and her delicate white face looked a little pale. She frowned and gritted her teeth. Her eyes were full of resentment, and she was muttering curses. "Help me!" Seeing Lin Sun, Liandye immediately shouted, and then her figure flashed directly towards Lin Sun. "Didn't you go to look for an unprecedented opportunity? Why are you here?" Lin Sun couldn't help asking. "Of course, this is the desolated blood ancient land that was born from luck." Liandye rolled her eyes at Lin Sun, and then she became anxious. "Hurry up, let's leave here first. Those guys behind will be here soon." Lin Sun stood there and said innocently, "It's you who are being chased, not me. You ungrateful and ungrateful boy, I shouldn't have given you the scarlet fire gourd." Liandye gritted her teeth and scolded Lin Sun. If it weren't for the situation, she would have beaten Lin Sun. Chapter 463. Speaking of the scarlet fire gourd, Lin Sun remembered that this gourd was an ancient treasure with a great origin. A drop of blood essence from the heart of an ancient giant was sealed inside. It contained a mysterious cultivation and was priceless. Although this treasure should have belonged to Lin Sun, Liandye was generous enough to return it to him, which was also a form of friendship. "Ungrateful, ungrateful wretch, I misjudged you. Don't let me see you in the future," Liandye said angrily beside him. "If you scold me again, I won't help you." Lin Sun glared at her. Such a sexy and beautiful woman, and as the successor of the myriad transformations spiritual land, her identity was extraordinary. Yet, at this moment, she was muttering and cursing him like a child. It was truly laughable. What did you say?" Liandye's eyes suddenly lit up. I misunderstood you. I didn't expect you to be so loyal." All of a sudden, she became loyal again. Lin Sun was speechless and said, "Let's go." Yes, let's leave here first. Those bastards will be here soon." Liandye's expression changed slightly, and she immediately rushed towards the depths of the bloody mist with Lin Sun. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Not long after they left, there was a sound of something breaking through the air, and figures appeared one after another. A dark blue lightning roared and turned into a girl. Her skin was crystal clear, her eyes bright, and her body was overflowing with a waterfall-like aura of thunder. Yun Yao was the descendant of Sky Mountain, Ling Xinyuo. She had a transcendent talent, thunder soul jade body, and her strength was unfathomable. She had been famous in the world since a few years ago. She escaped again. Ling Xinyuo frowned, and lightning surged in her eyes. She didn't escape far. On the other side, a young Taoist appeared with an ancient sword with pine patterns on his back. As his eyes moved, golden mysterious patterns appeared. He was full of treasure aura and was indescribably transcendent. It was Yun Ku, the descendant of Spirit Sword sect, an extraordinary figure with secret Taoist teachings. That's not right. She's been in contact with someone here before. There's an unusual aura in the air. An ape phantom rushed out and turned into a black-robed youth with dark skin and crimson eyes. He sniffed lightly and said with a frown, "This aura doesn't belong to the successor of the Star Solitude Tao sect, Tai Qianhan, nor does it belong to the little killing god of the demon suppression family, Bai Yu. Then who could it be? Could it be Lian Die's helper?" Yun Ku's eyes were deep. "They aren't inheritors of ancient inheritances, because I remember all of their auras. Meanwhile, this aura is extremely special, surging with life force, extremely astonishing." Yuan Zhan's battle intent surged, and he was like a demonic ape. His blood energy surged, and just that wisp of aura alone made him want to fight. It was obvious that the mysterious person who came into contact with Lian Die was very special. Where are you going, Miss Ling?" Yun Ku noticed that Ling Xinyuo's figure flashed as she flew towards the depths of the blood-colored mist. "Go kill the demoness and take back the Luo Ho secret treasure." Before he finished speaking, Ling Xinyuo's figure had already disappeared. I already said that Ling Xinyuo's temperament is as cold as ice, and she's a loner. It's obviously impossible to move together with her. Yuan Zhan shook his head, and his voice was filled with dissatisfaction towards Ling Xinyuo's way of doing things. Who asked her to have unparalleled battle prowess and possess the Thunder Soul Jade physique? In this desolate blood-ancient land, only she isn't afraid of the evil curse aura. Yun Ku sighed lightly. They were both peerless geniuses of the ancient spirit world, but Ling Xinyuo made him feel fearful. Not only was this girl's talent terrifying, her temperament was as clear as ice, and her intelligence was extraordinary. She stood out from the crowd and was extremely strong. "Little Cow Nose, stop wasting time. This time, besides us, there are many other inheritors of ancient sects pursuing the demoness, and all of them are determined to obtain the Luoho secret treasure. A bloody battle is inevitable. If you continue wasting time, not to mention meat, you won't even get a sip of soup," Yuan Zhan said impatiently. "Oh, then let's go." Yun Ku took a deep breath and left swiftly. "Motherfucker! Once I obtain the Luoho secret treasure, I'll have to find an opportunity to kill this little cow nose as well, so as to avoid others saying that my blood god sect has colluded with the Taoist sect," Yuan Zhan muttered in his heart, and then he followed after Yun Ku. Bang! 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 Not long after they left, the ground quaked like a thunderclap, and then a figure walked out with large strides from the surging blood-red mist. He was tall and robust like a mountain, and his upper body was bare. His muscles seemed as if they were made of bronze, and they flickered with a bright glow. He carried a black iron rod on his shoulder, and every single step he took was like a moving mountain, and he possessed an oppressive, imposing aura. The disciple of the Solitude Star Taoist sect, Tai Qianhan. After he arrived here, his gaze swept the surroundings coldly, and he seemed to have noticed something before he continued charging forward. The path he took was exactly the same as Ling Xinyuo, Yun Ku, and Yuan Zhan. That demoness deserves death. She actually dared to steal the Luoho secret treasure that belongs to me. Not long after, another figure flashed over. This was a man in golden armor who held a spear in his hand, and he had a murderous and cold expression. The descendant of the demon suppression clan, Bai Yu. Subsequently, batch after batch of cultivators arrived successively in this deathly silent and dangerous deep mountain. All of them were peerless figures from ancient orthodoxies. Moreover, many of them had brought along servants and attendants at the Tao Insight realm, and they arrived in a formidable array that broke the peace of the ancient blood desolation grounds. All of this was for the sake of seizing the mysterious Luoho secret treasure. Who exactly is pursuing you? Oh, let me count. Ling Xinyuo, Tai Qianhan, Yun Ku, Nangong Qing, Yuan Zhan, Feng Xiaobei. Oh my, there are too many, I can't count them all. The blood-red mist suffused the air, and Lin Sun and Lian Jie moved through it while chatting. When he found out that there were actually so many people pursuing Lian Jie, Lin Sun couldn't help but be astounded, and he said, "What exactly did you do to draw so many people to kill you?" Lian Jie sighed faintly and said, "Alas, an innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. I just casually snatched a treasure, yet they were infuriated to the point of wanting to seize my treasure and kill me. Tell me, how can they bully others like this?" She bit her plump and moist red lips lightly, her pearly white teeth were slightly exposed, her starry eyes were filled with resentment, and her gorgeous face carried a trace of loneliness and grievance. Lin Sun wouldn't be bewitched by her, and he frowned. "If you still don't tell the truth, then don't blame me for turning around and leaving." Lian Jie hurriedly said, "Handsome boy, I'm telling the truth. It's just that the treasure I snatched is slightly special." Lin Sun knew it was like this. He couldn't help but be curious about what exactly was the treasure that could incur the wrath of so many people and make so many outstanding talents pursue relentlessly. "I told you, you can't be greedy." Lian Jie glanced at Lin Sun as if to warn him, but then she said, "Of course, if we join forces and can successfully escape from this pursuit, I'll definitely share the secret of this treasure with you." This was a kind of temptation. Lin Sun didn't say a word and turned around to leave. At this time, she still wanted to talk terms with him. Did she really think that he, Lin Sun, would not hesitate to go against so many outstanding talents for a treasure? Hey, handsome boy, aren't you too heartless? Ah, you're really leaving. Stop right there. Fine. Come back. I was wrong, okay? I'll tell you everything you want to know. In the end, Lian Jie showed her sincerity and poured out some secrets to persuade Lin Sun. This made her grind her teeth in anger, and she wished she could bite Lin Sun. If it was any other cultivator, they would have been charmed by her peerless charm, bowing their heads and obediently obeying her. But Lin Sun was different. These tricks were useless on him. Lin Sun was too lazy to care about what she thought. After listening to Lian Jie's words, he finally understood why so many strong talents persistently pursued Lian Jie. It turned out that the treasure she'd seized was a single horn that belonged to the Rahu demon king of the ancient times. It contained a shocking secret, and if she was able to decipher it, it was extremely possible for her to obtain the supreme inheritance of the Rahu demon king. This shocked Lin Sun. An inheritance secret method from ancient times, and it was passed down by a demon king, so it could be imagined how shocking it was. And this desolate blood ancient land was the place where the Rahu demon king died. It was said that in ancient times there was a battle of gods here, and many great figures surrounded and killed the Rahu demon king. In the end, the gods fell like rain, turning this place into a terrifying burial ground. The horn of the Rahu demon king appeared here, and it caused many top figures to make a move. But in the end, it was obtained by Lian Jie. After understanding this, Lin Sun not only realized how powerful Lian Jie was to be able to snatch the treasure under the siege of so many enemies. "You can have designs on me, but don't even think about this horn." Seeing Lin Sun remain silent, Lian Jie couldn't help but be vigilant. "It's just a horn. I can't even be sure if there really is an inheritance in it. I can't be bothered to fight with you for it," Lin Sun said with a smile. "Of course, if you are willing to share the secret with me, I won't refuse." Lian Jie also smiled, and her smile was overflowing with seductive charm. She said in a sweet voice, "Of course. After we escape, I can even give you a chance to pursue me. This is a benefit that others can't obtain no matter how hard they try." Her beautiful hair was like a waterfall, her eyes were bright, her lips were red like fire, and her appearance was extremely beautiful. When she spoke, her tone was full of teasing, and she seemed especially attractive. She was a peerless beauty. However, Lin Sun ignored all of this and said indifferently, "You should keep this chance for yourself. I'm not interested in you." Liandye said in surprise, do you like men? This hobby is very special. If so, I can introduce some beautiful men to you. They are all very good. Lin Sun's face immediately darkened. Do you want me to help you? This time, Liandye really shut up. They talked from time to time along the way, so they didn't feel lonely. But soon, Lin Sun's face changed slightly. He felt an indescribable danger, as if something terrible was about to happen in the depths of the bloody mist. Do you know what's in front of you? Lin Sun asked. Liandye was stunned. I don't know. Lin Sun's lips twitched imperceptibly. He thought that since Liandye could tell the origin of the Blood Wilderness ancient land, she must be very familiar with this area. Who would have thought that it would be such a result? Whoosh! At this moment, a strange black light suddenly lit up in the bloody mist. Like a lightning blade, it suddenly burst out and pierced Lin Sun's eyebrows. Chapter 464. Whoosh! Lin Sun used Ice Drake steps to avoid the attack. Behind him, a rock was silently split open and the cut was smooth. Whoosh! 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 Before Lin Sun could react, black lights flashed again in the bloody mist, like black lightning, strange, terrifying. They whistled like rain and shot towards Lin Sun. Spirit-eating insects. Go! Liandye exclaimed. Her pretty face was pale, and fear appeared between her eyebrows. Her figure flashed and she rushed to one side. Spirit-eating insects. Just from the name, one could tell how horrible this kind of monster was. Lin Sun didn't dare to hesitate and flew away with Liandye. This woman was not weak, but she was so scared that she turned around and ran away, which made Lin Sun realize the situation was not good. Suddenly, a black light swept over. Lin Sun couldn't avoid it, so he slapped it with his palm. With a bang, the light cyan divine light surged, but the black light was not affected at all. It directly passed through the palm wind and rushed to the center of Lin Sun's eyebrows. It was not afraid of the attack? Lin Sun was shocked. This was the palm he launched after he reached the complete sea spirit realm. Its power was much stronger than before, but it couldn't do anything to the black light at all. Boom! Suddenly, the black light drilled directly into the center of Lin Sun's eyebrows, causing a sharp pain. At that moment, Lin Sun saw the true face of the black light clearly. It was a black insect shaped like a needle. It was smaller than a grain of rice, and its figure was illusory, as if it wasn't a real object. It rushed into the sea of consciousness and stabbed at Lin Sun's soul. It was a terrible attack on the soul, not the body. It was strange, cruel, unexpected, and impossible to guard against. Liandye, who had already escaped, let out a sigh. She didn't need to look back to know that Lin Sun must have been hit. Spirit-eating insects were a kind of ferocious monster that appeared in group. They were the souls condensed by the evil spirits of heaven and earth. They were invisible and not afraid of attack. Under such circumstances, no matter how powerful you were, you couldn't do anything to them. The most terrible thing was that these insects specialized in devouring souls. In ancient times, they even devoured the souls of gods unexpectedly. Little Handsome, I'm really sorry. I have to leave first. When I get out of here in the future, I'll build a tomb for you to pay tribute to your dead soul. Liandye sighed in her heart, but her speed was not slow. She flashed quickly, as she did not want to be surrounded by those god-devouring insects. It's not kind of you to watch someone die and run away alone. A voice resounded by Liandye's ears, and it shocked her to the point her entire body stiffened. After that, she saw that Lin Sun, whom she thought would surely die, had actually caught up to her. Are you all right? Liandye was bewildered. Do you want something to happen to me? Lin Sun asked. Liandye smiled brightly and looked pleasantly surprised. You're really fine, that's great. But don't blame me. Those god-devouring insects are too terrifying. If I stay, I will definitely die. Lin Sun nodded and said, Let's go. I don't want to cooperate with you anymore after we get out of here. Liandie's expression changed slightly as she sensed that Lin Sun had a problem with her behavior just now. Can you forgive me just this once? How could I have thought that there would be such terrible things as the god-devouring insects there? If I had known, I would definitely not have left you to die. Liandie said pitifully. She was an extremely charming beauty, but now she was begging with such soft words. If it were someone else, they would have already become soft-hearted. Just as Liandie was about to speak, Lin Sun made a gesture of silence and looked into the distance. In the depths of the blood-colored mist, a vague figure emerged. It was too illusory and hazy, making it hard to see clearly. It was extremely mysterious. Soon, Lin Sun noticed that it was a woman wearing a tattered feather robe. Her eyes were hollow, and her body was dripping with black blood. She stood there motionlessly, and there was a bowl-sized hole in her chest as if her heart had been forcibly dug out by a sharp claw. With just one glance, Lin Sun felt cold all over, and his hair stood on end. Ancient God Blood River. She actually broke through the power of the curse and came ashore. On one side, Liandie's pretty face was also pale, and she was extremely frightened. Run! The two changed directions at the same time and fled madly. The aura of the female ancient corpse was too terrifying. It was clearly a dead thing, but it had a despairing aura that made people tremble in fear. Another ancient corpse. Not long after, another ancient corpse appeared in front of the two. It was a skeleton wearing a decaying armor. Its eye sockets were filled with black blood, and it was looking around blankly in the blood-colored mist. When the corpse's hollow eye sockets swept over, Lin Sun's body stiffened as if he was being stared at by the god of death, and he was about to suffocate. Fortunately, the ancient corpse didn't seem to notice him and quickly disappeared in the blood-colored mist. If I'm not wrong, this should be the forbidden area of the ancient blood-desolate land. Even life and death kings don't dare to trespass. Liandie's pretty face was pale, and her voice was trembling. We must leave here as soon as possible. Saying this, she turned around and left. At this moment, Liandie seemed to have made up her mind. Even if she went back the way she came, she wouldn't hesitate to run into those experts who were chasing her. She obviously knew how terrifying this so-called forbidden area was, and she didn't dare to stay any longer. What is a forbidden area? Lin Sun caught up with her. In ancient times, all the deities here fought to kill Luohu Demon King. But in the end, none of them survived, including Luohu Demon King. All of them died here. It's said that this forbidden area is filled with a mysterious curse power that can make the Great Way disappear and all living beings perish. Liandie transmitted her voice to Lin Sun while flying. She looked solemn and her voice was trembling. If I had known that this was a forbidden area, I would rather fight with those bastards to the death than come here. Lin Sun gasped. Although it was just a rumor, it was enough to make him feel cold. Even the deities were buried here. How terrifying was it? It was unimaginable that there was such a terrifying place in the precious blood-desolate land. It was simply too shocking. Rumble suddenly. A thunderous sound came from the depths of the blood-colored mist. It was so abrupt that it broke the dead silence of this area like a clap of thunder. Whoosh! A blood-colored sword chi rushed into the sky and evolved into a bloody sun, flowing with black blood. Dong! 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 Subsequently, the sound of war drums resounded. It was boundless and deep, and it shook the universe. A broken bronze drum soared into the sky, and its surface was stained with black blood. This area of the world was boiling. The blood-colored sword chi was dripping with blood, and it was terrifying. They didn't dare to look at it directly because it seemed as if their souls would be obliterated if they looked at it. The sound of the war drums was even more terrifying. It was filled with great mysteries, and it shook the souls to the point that they were about to leave their bodies. Run! Liandie screamed. This phenomenon was too terrifying. It was like the terrifying creatures that had fallen here in ancient times had awakened and resurrected from their slumber. There was no need to remind him at all. Lin Sun had already executed Ice Drake's steps with all his strength and fled into the distance. His expression became solemn, and his mind shook. At the same time as they fled, a blood-colored flag that was riddled with holes appeared once more in the depths of the blood-colored mist. It fluttered and released a black bloody light. At the same time, the sounds of battle and shouts resounded. It was like a shocking battle had erupted within it, and it caused the world to change color. If one looked carefully, they would be able to see broken ancient corpses within the blood-colored mist. Black blood flowed from their bodies as they fought each other. They were like the gods of ancient times. However, the black blood flowing from their bodies made them seem even more mysterious and terrifying. Lin Sun and Lian Jie were naturally unable to see all of this, but they felt indescribably terrified just by listening to the commotion. A place like this wasn't a place that sea spirit realm cultivators like them could come to at all. Shit. In another area, Ling Xinyuo's clear eyes focused, and she didn't hesitate to turn around and retreat. She'd noticed the same shocking phenomenon, and it was too terrifying. Damn it! Could it be that demon girl entered the blood desolation forbidden area and caused the power of the curse to awaken? Yunku's expression changed abruptly, and he couldn't care about anything else as he turned around and fled. Damn it! Yuan Zhan roared loudly and fled as well. At this moment, all the geniuses that entered this area had fled because they'd realized how dangerous it was, and they'd made a prompt decision to flee without the slightest hesitation. Because they'd heard that the blood desolation forbidden area had once buried the gods, and it was filled with an unfathomable power of the curse. Once it erupted, it was practically like the end of the world had arrived. Rumble! When Lin Sun and Lian Jie escaped safely, they saw blood-colored mist shoot into the sky from the blood desolation forbidden area, and it dyed the sky red while sword chi, war drums, war flags, saber lights, ancient scriptures. All sorts of terrifying phenomena had appeared in the sky. Besides that, the world shook with the sounds of battle, and it was like the gods were going on an expedition. The heavens and the earth trembled while the sun and moon dimmed. What's this? How terrifying! Flee! At this moment, all the cultivators that were distributed in every area of the blood desolation forbidden area were alarmed, and they looked towards the same direction in unison as they saw this shocking and strange phenomenon. The phenomena of the gods going on an expedition have appeared once more. All of this is about to end. Alas, it only lasts for less than 2 months every single time. I wonder when the blood desolation forbidden area will open again. In a ruin, an old man at the Tao Insight realm let out a long sigh. He had abundant experience, and he'd entered the blood desolation forbidden area more than once when he was young. He knew that every time the strange phenomenon appeared, it meant that all of this was about to end, and the blood desolation forbidden area would once again fall into silence and vanish from the world. According to rumor, the ancient treasures that were scattered in every area of the blood desolation forbidden area had come from the phenomena of the gods going on an expedition. In other words, every time the phenomenon appeared, ancient treasures would flow out and be scattered in every area of the blood desolation forbidden area. Unfortunately, when this phenomenon came to an end, the passageway to the blood desolation forbidden area would be closed a long time ago, and they could only wait for the next opening of the passageway to the blood desolation forbidden area. Let's go. Let's go. It'll be too late if we don't leave now, and we're bound to be buried here. The blood desolation forbidden area was filled with the figures of cultivators that were fleeing madly, and they were dense like a tide as they flashed towards the entrance. Lin Sun and Lian Jie were amongst them as well. Both of them had escaped danger, and they'd just recovered from the shock. When they looked back at the blood desolation forbidden area that was extremely far away, they felt fortunate as if they'd survived a calamity. Everything that happened just now was too terrifying indeed.